I can't do this anymore. Victoria's whisper cut through the crowded lunchroom like a knife. Adrian froze, his fork suspended midair, eyes locked on the woman who'd occupied his thoughts for 6 months. Around them, conversations buzzed, oblivious to the confession hanging between two people who'd spent half a year pretending they were just colleagues. But everyone already knew the truth. Everyone except them. If you want to see how a single father and a hidden billionaire finally stopped running from what everyone else could see, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The fluorescent lights of Morrison and Associates hummed their usual monotonous tune, casting a sterile glow over rows of cubicles where dreams went to collect dust and paychecks arrived every 2 weeks like clockwork. It was the kind of place where ambition wore business casual and slowly died behind a computer screen, where water cooler conversations replaced genuine human connection, and where people spent 40 hours a week surrounded by strangers who knew their coffee orders, but nothing about their lives. Adrian Blake had made peace with this reality 3 years ago. At 32, he'd learned that life wasn't about chasing fairy tales. It was about showing up, doing the work, and making sure his 7-year-old daughter Emma had everything she needed. Romance, passion, risk. Those were luxuries for people whose lives hadn't already been shattered and rebuilt from broken pieces. He'd been 25 when Emma was born, 26 when her mother walked out, leaving nothing but a note on the kitchen counter and an empty closet. 27 when he stopped checking his phone hoping she'd come back. 28 when he finally understood that some people aren't built for the long haul, and that's not your failure. It's theirs. The years that followed had been a masterclass in survival. Late nights rocking a crying baby while studying for his business degree, negotiating with daycares that cost more than his rent, learning to braid hair from YouTube videos, parent-teacher conferences, birthday parties, doctor appointments, a relentless parade of responsibilities that left no room for self-pity and even less room for romance. By the time Emma started first grade, Adrian had transformed himself into something he never thought he'd be: disciplined, focused, emotionally bulletproof. He woke at 5:30 every morning, meal prepped on Sundays, maintained a budget spreadsheet that would make accountants weep with joy, and kept his personal life so private that his coworkers barely knew he had a daughter, let alone a history. Control was his religion. Routine was his salvation. And then Victoria Hale walked into his carefully ordered world and threatened to burn it all down. She'd started at Morrison and Associates 8 months ago, introduced at a Monday morning meeting as a senior executive transferring from their London office. Victoria Hale, VP of Strategic Development, impressive credentials, impeccable taste, the kind of polished professionalism that made everyone sit up a little straighter. Adrian had barely noticed her that first day. He was busy, focused on a project deadline, his mind already racing ahead to Emma's ballet recital that evening. Another executive meant nothing to him, just another name to remember, another person in the building's ecosystem. But Victoria had noticed him. He didn't know it then, but she'd watched him during that meeting, the way he took notes without looking down, the way he asked the one question everyone else was too intimidated to voice, the way he left exactly on time while others lingered trying to make impressions. She'd noticed the absence of a wedding ring, the faint coffee stain on his collar, the efficiency in his movements that spoke of a man who couldn't afford to waste time. She'd noticed everything. Their first real conversation happened 2 weeks later in the copy room, one of those accidental encounters that would have been forgettable if not for what came after. Adrian had been wrestling with the printer, that ancient beast of a machine that jammed with religious regularity, when Victoria appeared beside him holding a stack of documents. "Third-floor printer's broken too," she'd said, her British accent crisp and precise. "Apparently it's an epidemic." He'd glanced up, actually seeing her for the first time. Dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, gray eyes that seemed to catalog everything, a subtle scar on her left eyebrow that suggested a story she probably never told. Expensive watch, simple jewelry, the kind of put-together that took either significant money or significant effort. "I give it 5 minutes before this one surrenders too," Adrian had replied, forcing the paper tray closed. "These machines can smell desperation." She'd smiled, a real smile, not the corporate version people deployed in meetings. "Then we're both doomed. I've got a presentation in 20 minutes. "Conference room B? How'd you know?" "Process of elimination. Conference room A's projector died yesterday. C is being renovated. D is too small for what you're printing." Victoria had tilted her head, studying him with open curiosity. "You're Blake, right? Analytics department?" "Adrian." And yeah, he'd started feeding his documents through, willing the machine to cooperate. "You're from London." "Guilty. Though I've been told my accent makes everything I say sound more important than it actually is." "Does it work?" "Remarkably well." They'd stood there in companionable silence while the printer wheezed and groaned, producing pages at a pace that suggested it was personally offended by the concept of efficiency. Adrian should have been impatient. He had a meeting of his own, but something about Victoria's presence was easy. No pressure to fill the silence. No awkward small talk. Just two people waiting for a machine to do its job. "You always leave exactly at 5?" she'd asked suddenly. Adrian had looked at her, surprised by the observation. "When I can. I've got—" He'd paused, years of privacy winning out. "Prior commitments." "I noticed. Everyone else stays until 6, 7 sometimes. But you're gone at 5:01 without fail." It wasn't accusatory, just observational, but Adrian had felt the familiar defensive walls rising. "I do my work. If people want to stay late for appearances, that's their choice." I wasn't criticizing. Victoria had gathered her finished documents, tapping them against the machine to align the edges. "Actually, I think it's refreshing. Most people here treat overtime like a competitive sport." The printer had jammed again, flashing an error code that might as well have been hieroglyphics. "Fantastic," Adrian had muttered. Victoria had leaned over, pressed a sequence of buttons he didn't know existed, and the machine had hummed back to life like she'd performed an exorcism. "How did you—" "I read the manual." She'd shrugged. "Revolutionary concept, I know. Who reads printer manuals? People who value their time and sanity." Adrian had laughed, genuinely laughed, for the first time in weeks. "Fair point." She'd left shortly after, documents in hand, leaving behind the faint scent of something expensive, and the strange feeling that he'd just been seen in a way he wasn't used to. That should have been the end of it. A pleasant interaction. A brief connection. Nothing more. But it wasn't. Over the following weeks, they kept running into each other, at the coffee machine in the mornings, in the cafeteria during lunch, in the parking garage at the end of the day. Coincidence at first, then something that felt less accidental. Their conversations grew longer, deeper. Adrian learned that Victoria had moved 7 times in the past decade. New York, Singapore, London, Dubai. That she was obsessive about terrible coffee and refused to drink the office sludge. That she ran 5 miles every morning before work and hated every second of it. That she'd learned to speak Japanese because she was bored during a 3-month assignment in Tokyo. She learned that Adrian was a single father, though he never explained the circumstances. That he'd put himself through business school while working full-time. That he could recite every Disney movie dialogue because he'd watched them on repeat during Emma's toddler years. That he'd once dreamed of starting his own consulting firm, but had shelved that dream in favor of stability. They talked about everything except the one thing that was becoming increasingly obvious to everyone around them: the attraction. Adrian felt it every time Victoria walked into a room, a heightened awareness that made him hyper-conscious of every word, every gesture, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was concentrating, the way her laugh sounded different when it was genuine versus polite, the way she looked at him sometimes, like she was trying to solve a puzzle she couldn't quite figure out. He told himself it was just chemistry, biology. The natural response of a man who hadn't dated in 6 years to an attractive, intelligent woman who actually seemed interested in talking to him. Nothing to act on, nothing to pursue, because Adrian Blake didn't take risks anymore. Not with his heart, not with Emma's stability, not with the carefully constructed life he'd built from the ashes of his previous one, but discipline and desire are poor bedfellows, and somewhere between coffee conversations and parking lot goodbyes, Adrian started looking forward to work in a way he never had before. Started taking an extra minute in the morning to make sure his tie was straight. Started choosing his words more carefully when Victoria was around, wanting to make her laugh, wanting to see that spark of genuine interest in her eyes. He was playing with fire, and he knew it. Victoria, for her part, was fighting her own battle, one complicated by a secret she couldn't share. She wasn't Victoria Hale, VP of Strategic Development. Not really. She was Victoria Hale, majority shareholder of Hale Industries, a multinational conglomerate worth $12 billion. She was the woman Forbes called the youngest self-made billionaire to watch. She was the CEO who'd turned her family's struggling manufacturing business into a global empire before her 30th birthday. And she was living a lie. The executive position at Morrison & Associates was a fiction, a cover story she'd created with her board's reluctant approval. After a decade of living under constant scrutiny, of every relationship being dissected for ulterior motives, of never knowing if people liked her or her money, Victoria had made a radical decision. She wanted 1 year. 1 year to live as someone ordinary, to have conversations that weren't about stock prices or market strategies, to meet people who saw her as a person, not a bank account. So she'd created a background that was impressive enough to explain her position, but not remarkable enough to draw attention. She'd rented a modest apartment in the city. She'd traded her driver for public transportation. She'd left her usual world behind and stepped into Morrison & Associates wearing a mask of mediocrity. It was supposed to be temporary. A sabbatical from her real life. A chance to breathe before the pressure crushed her completely. She hadn't planned on Adrian Blake. Hadn't planned on meeting someone who looked at her like she was just Victoria, not Victoria Hale of Hale Industries. Someone who didn't try to impress her or use her as a stepping stone. Someone who left work exactly on time because he had priorities that mattered more than corporate advancement. Someone real. Every conversation with Adrian felt like a gift, unguarded, genuine, free from the calculation that poisoned every interaction in her real life. He made her laugh. He challenged her ideas. He treated her like an equal, not a trophy or a target. And somewhere between the coffee machine conversations and the parking lot goodbyes, Victoria Hale, billionaire, CEO, woman who'd been courted by princes and pursued by fortune hunters, fell completely and terrifyingly in love with a single father who packed his lunch and left work on time. The irony wasn't lost on her. She had everything money could buy and nothing it couldn't. Power without purpose. Success without satisfaction. A life so carefully curated that she'd had to create a fake one just to feel human. And the one man who made her feel alive had no idea who she really was. The guilt gnawed at her. Every time Adrian shared something personal, every time he opened up about his struggles as a single father, every time he trusted her with a piece of his carefully guarded world, Victoria felt the weight of her deception growing heavier. She should tell him. Should reveal who she was before this went any further. But how do you tell someone you've been lying since the day you met? How do you explain that every conversation has been built on a foundation of half-truths? How do you ask someone to see past the billions and the boardrooms and the life you've been hiding? So she stayed silent, kept playing the role, kept pretending to be ordinary while falling extraordinarily in love with a man who deserved better than her lies. The tension between them built slowly, like pressure in a closed system. Everyone in the office noticed. Sarah from HR started making knowing comments. You and Victoria seem close. Marcus from accounting would grin whenever they walked in together. Morning, you two. Even their boss, Patricia, had pulled Adrian aside one day with a gentle warning disguised as friendly advice. Just be careful. Office relationships can get complicated. Adrian had brushed it off, assured her nothing was happening, maintained his professional distance. But the truth was harder to deny when he went home at night and found himself thinking about Victoria instead of sleeping. When he caught himself checking his phone, hoping for a message from her. When Emma asked why he smiled so much lately, and he had no good answer. 6 months into their careful friendship, Adrian had to admit the truth. He was falling for her, and he had absolutely no idea what to do about it. Because Victoria Hale was brilliant, accomplished, worldly, the kind of woman who could have anyone. And Adrian Blake was a single father living paycheck to paycheck, whose idea of a wild Friday night was watching Frozen for the 100th time and folding laundry. The math didn't work. The logic failed. The risk was too great. So he did what he always did. Built higher walls, reinforced his discipline, told himself that some things weren't meant to be. But discipline only works when both people are fighting the same battle. And Victoria Hale had run out of patience. The day everything changed started like any other Wednesday. Adrian woke at 5:30, went through his morning routine with mechanical precision, shower, shave, coffee, Emma's lunch packed, breakfast on the table by 6:45. His daughter stumbled into the kitchen still half asleep, her dark hair a tangled mess, clutching the stuffed rabbit she'd had since she was 2. "Morning, Princess," Emma yawned, climbing into her chair. "Is it pancake day?" "Tomorrow. Today's oatmeal." But I don't like oatmeal. You liked it fine yesterday. That was yesterday. Today I'm older and wiser. Adrian hid his smile. 7 years old and already too smart for her own good. She had his dark hair and his stubborn chin, but her eyes, those were her mother's. A genetic reminder he couldn't escape. Eat half. We'll negotiate from there. Deal. Emma picked up her spoon with the solemnity of a business executive closing a merger. Dad? Yeah? Why do you smile at your phone so much? Adrian looked up from his own breakfast. What? Your phone. You look at it and smile, like when Aunt Jenny sends funny videos, but different, out of the mouths of babes. I don't smile at my phone. You do. Last night you were doing it while I was brushing my teeth, and the night before during my bath. And, okay. Adrian held up his hand in surrender. Maybe I've been texting a friend from work. Emma's eyes narrowed with 7-year-old suspicion. A friend? Yes, a friend. Is she pretty? How do you know it's a she? Because you're blushing. Adrian felt his face heat. I'm not blushing. You're totally blushing. Is she nice? Very nice. Now eat your oatmeal before we're late. Emma grinned, that knowing smile that children deploy when they've successfully embarrassed their parents. I think you like her. I think you should focus on breakfast. But as Emma returned to her oatmeal, chattering about upcoming tests and playground drama, Adrian couldn't help pulling out his phone one more time. There was a message from Victoria, sent 20 minutes ago. Coffee machine is broken. Day ruined before it started. Send help or caffeine, preferably both. Adrian smiled, the exact smile Emma had been talking about, and typed back. There's a cafe 2 blocks south, Colombian roast, life-changing. 3 dots appeared immediately. You're an angel. Want anything? I'm good. See you at lunch? Looking forward to it. 3 words, simple, innocent. But Adrian felt them like a physical touch, and that's when he knew he was in serious trouble. Morrison and Associates operated on a strict rhythm. Morning meetings at 9, emails until 11, lunch from noon to 1, afternoon grind until 5. It was predictable, routine, safe. Today, the routine felt like torture. Adrian pushed through his morning tasks with half his usual focus, his mind drifting to the cafeteria, to lunch, to seeing Victoria. It was pathetic, really, a grown man counting down minutes like a teenager waiting for prom. At 11:53, Marcus stopped by his cubicle. You coming to lunch? Adrian kept his eyes on his screen. Yeah, usual time. Cool. Sarah's bringing her famous brownies. She makes those every week. At what point do they stop being famous? When they stop being delicious. Marcus leaned against the cubicle wall, his expression turning sly. Victoria going to be there? How should I know? Because you two are attached at the hip lately. We're friends. Right, friends. Marcus made exaggerated air quotes. The kind of friends who look at each other like that. Like what? Like the rest of us aren't in the room. Adrian finally looked up. You're reading too much into it. Am I? Because Sarah's running a pool on when you two finally get together. I've got money on next month, so if you could hold off until then, I'd appreciate it. There's a pool? Dude, there's been a pool for 3 months. You're the only 2 people in this building who don't see what's happening. Adrian should have been annoyed. Should have felt invaded, exposed. Instead, he just felt tired. Nothing's happening, Marcus. Yet, Marcus pushed off the wall, grinning. But when it does, I'm collecting my winnings. He left, and Adrian sat there staring at his computer screen without seeing it. Was it really that obvious? Had he been that transparent? His phone buzzed. Victoria. Running late. Save me a seat? Adrian. Always. He sent it before thinking, before his usual caution could intercept. Always. Such a loaded word, such a promise he had no right to make. But he meant it, and that scared him more than anything. The cafeteria at Morrison and Associates was a study in corporate mediocrity. Fluorescent lights, beige walls, tables that had seen better decades. The food was serviceable at best, criminal at worst, but it was convenient and cheap, which mattered more than quality to most people. Adrian arrived at noon sharp, grabbed his lunch from the fridge, turkey sandwich, apple, granola bar, the same thing he ate 4 days a week. and scanned the room. The usual crowd occupied their usual territories. The executives clustered near the windows. The IT department had claimed the back corner. The administrative staff dominated the center tables. He spotted an empty table near the wall, away from the main traffic, and headed there. Saved you a seat. Adrian turned to find Sarah grinning at him from a nearby table, patting the empty chair beside her. We've got brownies. Thanks, but I'm good. You waiting for someone? Her eyes sparkled with mischief. Just want some quiet. Uh-huh, quiet. Sure. He escaped to his chosen table, arranged his lunch with unnecessary precision, and pulled out his phone to check messages he'd already read. Pathetic. He was absolutely pathetic. At 12:07, Victoria walked in. Adrian felt it before he saw her. That shift in the room's energy, that magnetic pull. He looked up, and there she was, scanning the cafeteria with coffee cup in hand, dark hair loose around her shoulders instead of in its usual ponytail. Their eyes met across the room. She smiled. He smiled back. And every single person in that cafeteria noticed. Victoria navigated through the tables, deflecting greetings and small talk with practiced ease, her focus never wavering from Adrian. She slid into the seat across from him, setting down her coffee with a satisfied sigh. You're a lifesaver. This cafe is incredible. Told you. I may have bought their entire supply of Colombian roast. The barista looked concerned. How much is entire supply? 6 bags. Don't judge me. Adrian laughed. I'm judging you a little. Worth it. Victoria opened her own lunch, some grain bowl situation that looked suspiciously healthy. How's your morning? The usual chaos? Yours? Patterson wanted revisions on the quarterly report. Again. I'm starting to think he just likes making people rewrite things. Power trip. He does it to everyone. Comforting. She stabbed a piece of chicken with more force than necessary. How's Emma? The question, casual, genuine, made Adrian's chest tighten. Victoria always asked about Emma, always remembered details, always seemed genuinely interested in his daughter's life. She's good. Tried to negotiate her way out of oatmeal this morning. Smart kid. Too smart. She asked why I smile at my phone so much. Victoria's fork paused halfway to her mouth. What did you tell her? That I have a friend from work. And? She asked if you were pretty. Pink-colored Victoria's cheeks. Actual, visible evidence that she was affected. What did you say? Adrian held her gaze. I didn't answer the question. Why not? Because then she'd know I was lying. The words hung between them, heavier than Adrian had intended. Not a confession exactly, but close enough that there was no taking it back. Victoria set down her fork. Adrian, we should eat. Your grain bowl's getting cold. It's already cold. Then we should eat it before it gets colder. She didn't laugh, didn't smile, just looked at him with those gray eyes that saw too much, understood too much. Around them, the cafeteria buzzed with conversation. Someone's phone rang. Someone else laughed too loud. The coffee machine hissed and sputtered. Normal sounds. Normal day. Normal lunch. Except nothing felt normal anymore. Victoria picked up her fork again, pushed food around her bowl. We need to talk. 4 words that never preceded anything good. About what? About this. She gestured between them. About what everyone else can see that we keep pretending isn't happening. Adrian's heart kicked into overdrive. Victoria, please don't deflect. Don't hide behind your walls. Just be honest with me. I am being honest. No, you're being careful. There's a difference. She was right. She was absolutely right, and Adrian hated how exposed that made him feel. What do you want me to say? Victoria leaned forward, her voice dropping to something just above a whisper. Everyone here can tell how I feel about you. The confession hit like a physical blow. Adrian's carefully constructed walls, 6 years of discipline, of emotional control, of protecting himself and Emma from risk, crumbled in an instant. Victoria, they're not subtle about it. Sarah makes comments. Marcus winks. Even Patricia pulled me aside last week to remind me about the company's fraternization policy. She laughed, but it sounded strained. Everyone knows, except apparently you. I'm not asking you to feel the same way. Her fingers traced the edge of her coffee cup, a nervous gesture he had never seen from her before. I'm just tired of pretending. Tired of these half conversations where we dance around what's actually happening. Tired of lying to myself that this is just friendship. Adrian couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what she was saying except that it was everything he'd wanted to hear and everything he'd been terrified of. Why now? His voice came out rougher than intended. Why tell me this now? Because yesterday I spent 20 minutes picking out what to wear to work, hoping you'd notice. Because I memorized your coffee order even though you bring your own. Because Emma asked why you smile at your phone and I want to be the reason. Victoria's eyes shimmered, but her voice stayed steady. Because I'm falling for you, Adrian Blake, and I can't keep pretending I'm not. The world narrowed to just the two of them. Everything else, the cafeteria, the watching coworkers, the risks, the complications, faded into background noise. Adrian looked at her, really looked at her, at the vulnerability in her eyes, at the courage it took to lay herself bare like this, at the woman who'd somehow slipped past every defense he'd spent years building. And he realized that discipline and control weren't strength. They were just fear wearing a different costume. Are they wrong? Victoria asked softly. The people who think there's something here, are they wrong? This was the moment. The choice. The cliff's edge. Adrian could step back, could hide behind his responsibilities, his fears, his carefully rational reasons why this couldn't work. Could protect himself and Emma from potential heartbreak. Or he could jump. No, he said quietly, the word carrying the weight of surrender. They're not wrong. Victoria's breath caught. They're not? They're not wrong, because I feel the same way. For 3 heartbeats, neither of them moved. Then Victoria's face transformed. Relief, joy, something too bright to contain breaking across her features. She laughed, soft and disbelieving. Say that again. I feel the same way. I can't believe it took you this long to admit it. I can't believe you've been noticing what I wear. I notice everything about you. Victoria reached across the table, her fingers brushing his. Every single thing. The touch, simple, innocent, sent electricity through Adrian's entire body. This is insane, he whispered. Probably. I don't do this. I don't take risks. I know. I have Emma to think about. I can't just… Adrian. Victoria squeezed his hand. I'm not asking you to choose between me and your daughter. I'm just asking you to stop running from this. He looked down at their joined hands, at the physical evidence of the line they were crossing. I'm terrified, he admitted. Me too. What if it doesn't work? What if it does? Around them, the cafeteria had gone suspiciously quiet. Adrian glanced up to find half the room watching with barely concealed interest. They're all staring. Let them. Victoria's smile was brilliant. I'm done hiding how I feel. Adrian felt something crack open in his chest, some sealed place he'd kept locked for 6 years. Fear, yes, but also hope, also possibility, also the terrifying, exhilarating realization that maybe, just maybe, he deserved this. Dinner tonight, Victoria said suddenly. What? You and me, actual date, no more cafeteria lunches and parking lot conversations. A real dinner. Adrian thought of Emma, of the babysitter he'd need to call, of the disruption to routine, of all the logical reasons to say no. Yeah, he heard himself say. Dinner tonight. Victoria's smile could have lit the entire building. Really? Really? I know this place. Italian, quiet, perfect for… Actually, Adrian interrupted. I know a place. Small Mexican restaurant. Emma's favorite. The owner knows us. I can see if they have a table. You want to go to your daughter's favorite restaurant for our first date? Is that weird? Victoria's eyes softened. It's perfect. Across the room, Sarah let out a whoop that was quickly shushed by Marcus. Someone started a slow clap. Patricia shook her head but couldn't hide her smile. Adrian felt his face heat. We're never going to hear the end of this. I don't care. Victoria stood, gathering her things. I have to get back to Patterson's revisions. But tonight, Adrian confirmed. She leaned down, close enough that he could smell her perfume, close enough that his heart forgot how to beat properly. I can't wait, she whispered. Then she was gone, leaving Adrian sitting alone at his table with half a sandwich and a completely reorganized life. His phone buzzed. Marcus. Dude, finally. Sarah. Pay up, everyone. I had this week. Patricia. See me in my office. We need to discuss the fraternization policy. And from Victoria. Still can't believe you said yes. Adrian typed back. Still can't believe you asked. I would have waited forever. Good thing you didn't have to. He sat there for another moment, letting reality sink in. After 6 years of discipline, of control, of carefully managing every risk, he'd just said yes to the biggest risk of all. But as he packed up his lunch and headed back to work, passing co-workers who grinned and whispered and made no effort to hide their excitement, Adrian realized something. For the first time since Emma's mother left, since his world fell apart, and he rebuilt it from scratch, since he learned that hope was a luxury he couldn't afford, he felt alive. And Victoria Hale, the woman who'd somehow seen past his walls and decided he was worth the fight, she had no idea that the man she was falling for was exactly the kind of honest, real person she'd been searching for. While he had no idea that the woman he was falling for was hiding the biggest secret of all. But tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight was just dinner. Just two people taking a chance. Just the beginning of something that would change everything. The afternoon crawled by with the speed of continental drift. Adrian stared at his computer screen, watching spreadsheets blur into meaningless columns of numbers while his brain ran wild scenarios of everything that could go wrong tonight. He'd agreed to dinner. Actual dinner. A date. His first date in 6 years, and he'd chosen Emma's favorite restaurant like some kind of emotional masochist who wanted to combine two of the most important parts of his life on the first attempt. What had he been thinking? His phone buzzed every 20 minutes with messages from coworkers who suddenly felt entitled to weigh in on his personal life. Sarah sent a gif of champagne bottles popping. Marcus forwarded restaurant recommendations he hadn't asked for. Even Patricia's promised meeting about the fraternization policy turned out to be 5 minutes of her smiling knowingly and saying, "Just keep it professional at work, okay?" The only person who hadn't texted was Victoria, radio silent since she'd left the cafeteria 3 hours ago. Adrian tried not to read into it, tried not to let his anxiety spiral into catastrophic thinking, but years of single parenthood had trained him to expect disaster around every corner. At 4:15, his phone finally lit up. Victoria. Is 6:30 too early? I'm struggling to focus on anything except tonight. Relief flooded through him so intensely, he had to set down his coffee before he spilled it. Adrian. 6:30 works. I'll pick you up? Victoria. I can meet you there? Adrian. What kind of first date would that be? Victoria. The independent woman kind? Adrian. Humor me. Address? 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times before her response came through. Victoria. 425 Riverside Drive, apartment 12B. Adrian blinked at his screen. Riverside Drive wasn't cheap, wasn't even middle-class affordable. It was the kind of address that suggested either family money or a salary significantly higher than a senior executive at Morrison & Associates should be making. Another piece of the puzzle that didn't quite fit. But he pushed the thought aside, typed back a simple confirmation, and spent the last 45 minutes of his workday in a state of barely controlled panic. At 5:01, because some habits died hard, Adrian was out the door. The drive home took 20 minutes through rush hour traffic that felt personally designed to test his patience. He white-knuckled the steering wheel, breathing through the anxiety that kept whispering this was a mistake. He wasn't ready. He was going to ruin everything. Emma was waiting on the front steps of their modest townhouse when he pulled up, her babysitter Jenny sitting beside her. Jenny was 19, a college student who lived 3 doors down and had been watching Emma since she was 4, reliable, trustworthy, and currently grinning like she'd won the lottery. So, Jenny said as Adrian approached, I heard you have a date. Adrian shot her a look. How did you? Emma called me at lunch, very excited. Talked for 15 minutes about how her dad has a pretty friend from work. Emma beamed up at him, completely unrepentant. I told Jenny everything. Everything? That you smile at your phone, that you talk about Victoria all the time, that you said she was nice and smart and, Okay. Adrian held up his hands in surrender. Yes, I have dinner plans with a friend. A pretty friend, Emma clarified. A friend who happens to be. Adrian stopped, realizing he was arguing semantics with a 7-year-old. Yes, a pretty friend. Jenny stood, brushing off her jeans. What time do you need me until? 9? Maybe 10? Hot date? Jenny teased. Must be serious. It's just dinner. Uh-huh. Huh? When's the last time you had just dinner with anyone who wasn't Emma? She had a point. Adrian pulled out his wallet, handing her bills he'd withdrawn during lunch. There's leftover pizza in the fridge. Emma's homework is done. Bedtime at 8:30. I know the routine, Mr. Blake. We've been doing this for 3 years. Right, sorry. He was spiraling, he knew it, but couldn't seem to stop. Emergency numbers are on the fridge. If anything… Dad! Emma tugged on his sleeve. Jenny knows you've told her 1,000,000 times. I'm just making sure. You're being weird. I'm being thorough. Emma studied him with those two observant eyes. Are you nervous? No? You're doing the thing with your hands. Adrian looked down to find himself fidgeting with his car keys, the nervous tell he'd had since childhood. He forced himself to stop. Maybe a little nervous. Why? Victoria's nice. You said so. I did say that. So what's the problem? How did he explain to a 7-year-old that he was terrified of caring about someone again? That the last time he'd opened his heart, it had been shattered so completely he'd spent years collecting the pieces? That every instinct he'd developed as a parent screamed at him to protect himself, to stay safe, to not risk the stability they'd built? No problem, Princess. Just been a long time since I did this. Emma threw her arms around his waist, squeezing tight. You're going to be great, Dad. Victoria likes you. I can tell. How can you tell? You've never met her. Because you're the best. And she'd be lucky to have you. Adrian's throat tightened. He knelt down, pulling Emma close. I love you. You know that? I know. Love you too. She pulled back, suddenly serious. But if you don't go get ready, you're going to be late. And Jenny says being late on a first date is bad. Jenny says a lot of things. Jenny's right about a lot of things, Jenny called from the doorway. 20 minutes later, Adrian stood in front of his bathroom mirror, second-guessing every decision he'd made in the past 6 hours. The dark blue button-down looked too formal, but the casual polo seemed too informal. The jeans were too casual, but dress pants were too much. He changed shirts 3 times before settling on the blue button-down with jeans, a compromise between effort and not trying too hard. Hair combed but not styled, light cologne but not enough to be obvious. Watch that Emma had saved up allowance to buy him for his birthday. He looked presentable. Not impressive, not remarkable, just a 32-year-old man who was trying his best. Good enough, he told his reflection. His reflection looked unconvinced. At 6:05, Adrian kissed Emma goodbye, reminded Jenny of things she already knew, and headed to his car with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. The drive to Riverside Drive took 15 minutes. 15 minutes of radio songs he didn't hear, traffic lights he barely registered, and an internal monologue that oscillated between excitement and terror. He pulled up to 425 Riverside Drive at exactly 6:23. The building was not what he'd expected. Glass and steel, modern architecture, a doorman in an actual uniform. The kind of place that definitely had a gym, probably had a concierge, and absolutely cost more per month than Adrian's mortgage. His stomach churned. The doorman approached as Adrian stepped out of his Toyota Camry, reliable, practical, and suddenly feeling very out of place among the luxury cars in the parking area. Can I help you, sir? I'm here to pick up Victoria Hale. Apartment 12B. The doorman's expression flickered with something Adrian couldn't read. Surprise? Recognition? But he simply nodded and gestured toward the entrance. I'll let her know you're here. I can just go up. Building policy, sir. All visitors are announced. Right. Because this was the kind of building with policies and security protocols. Adrian waited in the lobby, all marble floors and modern art, feeling increasingly like he'd stumbled into a world he didn't belong in. The other residents who passed through looked like they'd stepped out of fashion magazines. Designer bags, expensive shoes, the casual wealth of people who'd never checked their bank account before making a purchase. What was Victoria doing living here? Senior executives at Morrison and Associates made good money, but not this good. The elevator dinged. Victoria stepped out and Adrian forgot every question he'd been formulating. She'd changed from her work clothes into a deep green dress that somehow managed to be both elegant and understated. Her hair was down, falling in dark waves past her shoulders. Minimal jewelry, simple heels. But the overall effect was devastating. "Hi," she said, and her smile was nervous. Actually, nervous. Like she'd been as anxious about this as he was. "Hi." Adrian's brain had apparently forgotten every word in the English language except that one. "You look, wow." Wow good or wow concerning? Definitely good, really good. I mean, he stopped himself before he could ramble further. "You look beautiful." Pink colored her cheeks. "You clean up pretty well yourself." "This old thing?" Adrian gestured at his shirt. "Only wore it 3 times before settling on it." Victoria laughed, the sound genuine and bright. "Only 3? I tried on 7 dresses." "7? I may have panicked. Joined the club. I almost called to cancel 4 times." "What stopped you?" "Emma. She gave me a pep talk." "Smart kid." "Too smart." Adrian held out his arm, surprised by his own boldness. "Shall we?" Victoria linked her arm through his, and the simple contact sent warmth flooding through him. They walked to his car, and he could feel the doorman watching them, could sense Victoria's slight tension as they approached his Camry. "It's not much," Adrian said, suddenly self-conscious. "But it's reliable. It's perfect." Victoria waited while he opened the passenger door. Very gentlemanly. "My mom would disown me if I didn't open doors." "I like your mom already." Adrian closed her door, walked around to the driver's side, and took a moment to breathe. This was happening. This was real. Victoria Hale, beautiful, brilliant Victoria, was sitting in his car wearing a green dress that made his heart forget how to function properly, waiting to have dinner with him at a family Mexican restaurant. His life had become completely surreal. He slid into the driver's seat, started the engine, and pulled out of the parking area with careful precision. "So," Victoria said, "tell me about this restaurant." "Casa Hernandez. Family owned, been there for 30 years. The owner, Maria, knows Emma by name. They make fresh tortillas every day, and their mole sauce is incredible." "Sounds wonderful." "It's not fancy." "I don't want fancy." Victoria turned to look at him, her expression sincere. "I want real. I want the places you love, the life you actually live." Adrian glanced at her, caught by the intensity in her eyes. "Why?" "Because fancy is easy. Fancy is what people show you when they're trying to impress you. I want to know the real Adrian Blake." Guilt flickered across Victoria's face. There and gone so quickly, Adrian almost missed it. But she recovered, smiled, and changed the subject. "What does Emma think about tonight?" "She's thrilled. Gave me a pep talk, told me you'd be lucky to have me." "She's absolutely right. She also told my babysitter everything, so now I'm pretty sure the entire neighborhood knows." Victoria laughed. "Does that bother you?" "A little. I've kept my personal life pretty private for years." "I noticed. You never talk about Emma at work." "Didn't want people making assumptions. Single dad, raising a kid alone. People either pity you or judge you." "For what?" "For whatever reason they've invented. That I'm overprotective. That I'm neglecting my career. That I'm not giving her a mother figure." Adrian's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "People love having opinions about your life when they don't know anything about it. I'm sorry you've dealt with that. Part of the package." He forced himself to relax. "But Emma's worth it. Worth every sacrifice, every judgment, every difficult day. I can hear it in your voice, the way you talk about her." "How's that?" "Like she's your whole world." "She is." Victoria was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. "That's what I admire about you. Your priorities are so clear. You know what matters." "Comes with responsibility. When it's just you and a kid depending on you, clarity isn't optional." "Still, most people your age are focused on careers, climbing ladders, making impressions. Can't climb ladders when you're making sure a 7-year-old finishes her homework and doesn't eat candy for dinner." "See? That's what I mean. You're so grounded, real." Victoria looked out the window. "It's refreshing." Adrian wanted to ask what she meant by that, Refreshing compared to what? But they'd arrived at Casa Hernandez. The restaurant sat in a modest strip mall sandwiched between a dry cleaner and a phone repair shop. The neon sign flickered slightly. The paint on the door was chipped, and it was absolutely nothing like the places Victoria probably usually dined. Adrian felt his confidence waver. It's not much to look at from the outside. Stop apologizing for things, Victoria said firmly. You chose this place for a reason. I trust your judgment. He parked, walked around to open her door, earning another smile, and led her inside. The smell hit first. Cumin, cilantro, grilled meat, fresh tortillas. The restaurant was small, maybe 15 tables, walls decorated with colorful paintings and photos of the Hernandez family. Mariachi music played softly from speakers. Half the tables were occupied with families, couples, regulars who looked up and waved when they recognized Adrian. Maria Hernandez emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. She was a round woman in her 60s, with kind eyes and a smile that could warm the coldest heart. Adrian? She pulled him into a hug that smelled like cooking spices and home. Where's my Emma? Home with the babysitter. I'm actually here on a... He gestured to Victoria. Date. Maria's eyes widened. Then she turned to Victoria with an assessing look that made Adrian slightly nervous. So you're the one. Victoria blinked. The one? Emma told me all about you last time they were here. Said her daddy smiles at his phone because of a pretty lady from work. Maria's smile grew wider. She was right. You are very pretty. Emma talks about me? All the time. Says her daddy likes you very much, but is too scared to say so. Maria? Adrian felt his face heating. What? I'm just saying what the little one told me. Maria grabbed 2 menus. Come. Best table in the house. She led them to a corner booth with a view of the small courtyard out back. String lights, potted plants, the evening settling into gentle darkness. Specials are on the board, Maria said, handing them menus. But Adrian, you want your usual? Actually, maybe we'll look at the menu. You get the enchiladas verdes every time. I'm branching out. Maria patted his shoulder. Sure you are. I'll bring you both water. She bustled off, leaving Adrian and Victoria alone in the booth. I like her, Victoria said. She's known Emma since she was 4, basically adopted us. The way she talks about Emma, she clearly loves her. The feeling's mutual. Emma thinks Maria makes magic in the kitchen. They settled into comfortable silence, looking over menus they both knew Adrian had already memorized. Victoria asked questions about dishes, listened to his recommendations, seemed genuinely interested in the food rather than just being polite. When Maria returned with water and fresh chips and salsa, Victoria ordered the mole enchiladas Adrian had suggested. He went with his usual, unable to break the habit completely. So, Victoria said once Maria had left again, this feels very different from the cafeteria. Better or worse? Better. Definitely better. She reached across the table, her fingers brushing his. More real. There was that word again, real. Adrian turned his hand over, properly holding hers. The contact felt monumental, like they'd crossed some invisible threshold. Can I ask you something? Victoria tensed slightly. Of course. Your apartment, Riverside Drive. That's not exactly affordable on my salary? She looked down at their joined hands. Family money, trust fund. I don't like talking about it. Why not? Because people change when they know. They either want something from you or they judge you for having it. Her thumb traced circles on his palm. I just wanted to be Victoria. Not Victoria with the family money. Not Victoria who grew up privileged. Just Victoria. Adrian understood that more than she knew. I get it. The labels thing. Single dad. That's all some people see. Exactly. Relief flickered across her face. You understand. He did. But something about her explanation felt incomplete, like there were pieces she wasn't sharing. Adrian pushed the feeling aside. Everyone had secrets. Everyone had parts of themselves they protected. For the record, he said, I don't care about your family money. No? No. I care that you read printer manuals and buy excessive amounts of coffee and ask about Emma like you actually want to know. Victoria's smile was brilliant. Those are the important things. the only things that matter. Their food arrived. Steaming plates of enchiladas covered in rich sauces, rice, beans, fresh tortillas. Maria set everything down with practiced efficiency, winked at Adrian, and disappeared before he could respond. They ate and talked, the conversation flowing as easily as it always had. Victoria told him about growing up in London, bouncing between boarding schools and family estates, learning early that money couldn't buy the things that actually mattered. Adrian shared stories about Emma's first words, her first steps, the terror of realizing he was responsible for another human's entire existence. "I didn't know what I was doing," he admitted. "Still don't most days. I just try not to screw her up too badly." "You're doing better than that. Emma sounds incredible." "She is. Smart, funny, stubborn as hell." "Wonder where she gets that from." "Her mother, probably." The words slipped out before Adrian could stop them, and he immediately regretted it. First date. Don't talk about your ex. Basic rule he'd somehow forgotten. But Victoria didn't flinch. "Do you talk to her? Emma's mother?" "No. She left when Emma was 6 months old. Haven't heard from her since." "That must have been hard, terrifying, the worst period of my life." Adrian set down his fork, but also clarifying. "I learned what I was capable of, learned that I could do it alone, learned that Emma deserved someone who wouldn't leave. She's lucky to have you." "I'm lucky to have her." Victoria squeezed his hand. "Can I tell you something?" "Anything." "I've dated men who talked about their careers, their ambitions, their accomplishments. Men who wanted to impress me with how important they were." She paused. "You're the first person who talks about being a father, like it's the most important thing you've ever done." "It is." "I know. That's what makes you different." Adrian felt something shift between them, something deepening, becoming more real than he'd expected. This wasn't just attraction or chemistry. This was connection, understanding, the terrifying possibility of something that mattered. They finished dinner, declined Maria's offer of flan because they were both too full, and Adrian paid the check despite Victoria's protests. "My rules," he said firmly. "I asked you to dinner. I pay." Very traditional. Is that a problem? Not even a little bit. Outside, the evening had cooled into something pleasant. Streetlights cast warm glows across the parking lot. Music drifted from the restaurant behind them. Adrian walked Victoria to his car, but neither of them moved to get in. "I don't want this to end," Victoria said softly. "Me neither. There's a park near my building, walking paths, nice views of the city. You want to walk? I want to spend more time with you." Adrian checked his watch. 7:45. He'd told Jenny he'd be back by 9, maybe 10. Emma would be asleep by now anyway. A walk sounds perfect. They drove back to Riverside Drive in comfortable silence, hands linked across the center console like teenagers. Adrian parked in a visitor spot, and Victoria led him to a park he'd never noticed before. Small, but beautifully maintained with lit pathways winding through carefully landscaped gardens. They walked slowly, no destination in mind, just moving together through the evening. "Thank you for tonight," Victoria said. "I should be thanking you for taking a chance on me." "On us." "On us," Adrian agreed. They walked past a fountain, a playground empty except for shadows, a bench where an elderly couple sat holding hands. "I want to be honest with you," Victoria said suddenly. Adrian's stomach dropped. "Here it comes. The but. The complication. The reason this couldn't work." "Okay. I haven't dated anyone seriously in years. Every relationship I've tried has failed because people wanted something from me. Connections, access, a boost to their own careers." She stopped walking, turned to face him. "I'm terrified you're going to be different for a while and then turn out to be the same." "I won't." "You can't promise that." "Maybe not. But I can promise I'm not interested in you because of your job or your money or what you can do for me." Adrian took both her hands. "I'm interested because you make me laugh, because you noticed I leave at 5 every day and asked why instead of judging, because you care about Emma without having met her, because being around you makes me feel alive in a way I haven't felt in years." Victoria's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "Really?" "Really. I'm not easy, Adrian. I have baggage, complications, things I haven't told you that might change how you see me." "We all have baggage. Mine comes with a 7-year-old and trust issues the size of Texas. She laughed through her tears. We're quite a pair. Maybe that's why this works. Victoria stepped closer, close enough that Adrian could feel her warmth, close enough that his heart forgot its rhythm entirely. Can I kiss you? She whispered. Adrian had imagined this moment 100 times in the past 6 months. Quick stolen moments in parking lots, passionate encounters after work, movie-perfect scenarios that bore no resemblance to reality. But this? Victoria asking permission, her hands trembling slightly in his, her vulnerability laid bare. This was better than anything he'd imagined. Yeah, he managed. You can kiss me. She rose on her toes, her lips meeting his in a kiss that was gentle and tentative and absolutely perfect. Adrian's hands found her waist, pulling her closer, and the world narrowed to just this. The taste of her lips, the softness of her skin, the rightness of holding someone who felt like home. When they pulled apart, both breathless, Victoria rested her forehead against his. Wow, she whispered. Yeah, wow. They stood there, wrapped in each other, while the park lights glowed around them and the city hummed its evening song. I should get you home, Adrian said eventually, though he made no move to let her go. I know, but I don't want to. Me neither. They kissed again, longer this time, deeper, filled with months of wanting and waiting and finally giving in. When Adrian finally drove Victoria home, it was 9:30. He walked her to her building's entrance, kissed her one more time under the doorman's knowing gaze, and watched her disappear into the elevator with a wave that promised this was just the beginning. The drive home passed in a blur of replayed moments and disbelieving joy. Adrian walked into his townhouse at 9:50 to find Jenny on the couch, textbook open, looking entirely unsurprised by his expression. Good date? The best. Called it. Jenny gathered her things. Emma's been asleep since 8:30. Kept asking when you'd be home to tell her about Victoria. I'll tell her in the morning. She's going to be insufferable. Just warning you. Adrian laughed. I can handle it. Jenny left, and Adrian stood in his quiet living room, feeling like he'd stepped into someone else's life. Someone braver. Someone willing to risk their heart again. His phone buzzed. Victoria. Thank you for tonight. For everything. I haven't stopped smiling. And Adrian. Me neither. Emma's going to have questions in the morning. Victoria. Tell her I can't wait to meet her. Adrian. Really? Victoria. Really? If we're doing this, I want to know the people who matter to you, and Emma matters most. Adrian sat down on his couch, staring at those words, feeling something crack open in his chest. This woman. This incredible, mysterious woman wanted to meet his daughter, wanted to be part of his life. Wanted him despite all the complications and responsibilities and baggage he carried. Adrian. She's gonna love you. Victoria. I hope so, because I'm falling for her dad pretty hard. Adrian. The feeling's mutual. Victoria. Good night, Adrian Blake, but... Adrian. Good night, Victoria Hale. He sat there for a long time, phone in hand, replaying the evening in vivid detail. The way Victoria had looked in that green dress, the sound of her laugh, the taste of her kiss, the promise of something real building between them. Upstairs, Emma slept peacefully, unaware that her father's carefully controlled world had just shifted on its axis. And in a luxury apartment across the city, Victoria Hale, billionaire, CEO, woman living a lie, stared at her phone and wondered how much longer she could keep her secret. Because Adrian Blake deserved honesty, deserved someone real, deserved better than the web of deception she'd woven. But telling him the truth meant risking everything they'd just found. And Victoria wasn't ready to lose him. Not yet. Not when she'd only just begun to hope that maybe, finally, she'd found someone who saw her instead of her bank account, even if that meant hiding the biggest part of who she was. The guilt gnawed at her as she changed for bed, washed her face, tried to sleep, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw Adrian smile, heard his laugh, felt his kiss, and she knew she was in too deep to turn back now. Tomorrow she'd face the consequences of her choices. Tomorrow, she'd figure out how to reconcile her two lives. Tonight, she'd just hold on to the memory of dinner at a family Mexican restaurant and a first kiss in a quiet park. Tonight, she'd let herself believe in fairy tales, even if she knew they rarely came true for women like her. Adrian woke to Emma sitting cross-legged at the foot of his bed, chin resting on her hands, staring at him with the intensity of a detective conducting an interrogation. "You're awake," she announced. He checked the clock. 6:15. 15 minutes before his alarm. "How long have you been sitting there?" "Long enough. Jenny said you got home late." With a smile. Emma leaned forward, eyes sparkling. "So? Tell me everything." Adrian sat up, rubbing sleep from his eyes. His daughter's enthusiasm was both endearing and slightly terrifying. "It's 6 in the morning." "And you went on a date with Victoria. Details. Now." "How about we discuss this over breakfast?" "How about you tell me right now, or I'm not eating breakfast ever again." "That's dramatic even for you." "I learned from the best." Emma crossed her arms. "Come on, Dad. You never go on dates. This is huge. I deserve to know." Adrian couldn't help smiling. She was right. This was huge. And the fact that Emma was invested made it feel even more real, even more important to get right. "Okay, we went to Casa Hernandez, had dinner, talked. That's it? That's the lamest story ever. What do you want me to say? Did you hold her hand? Did you kiss her? Does she like you back? When do I get to meet her?" Adrian's heart stuttered on that last question. "You want to meet her?" Emma rolled her eyes with the exasperation only a 7-year-old could muster. "Duh. If she's going to be around, I should know her. Make sure she's good enough for you." "Pretty sure that's my job." "We're a team, Dad. Your words, not mine." Emma scooted closer. "So, when can I meet her?" "I don't know. We just had our first date." "But there's going to be a second date, right?" Adrian thought about Victoria's goodnight text, the way she'd kissed him in the park, the promise in her eyes when she said she wanted to know the people who mattered to him. "Yeah, there's going to be a second date." Emma pumped her fist in victory. "Yes! Okay, so here's what we're going to do. You're going to invite her over for dinner. I'll help cook. We'll show her we're a great team and she'd be lucky to join us." "Emma, it's perfect. She already likes you. She just needs to see what awesome comes with the package." Adrian pulled his daughter into a hug, overwhelmed by her acceptance, her excitement, her complete willingness to let someone new into their carefully protected world. "When did you get so grown up?" "I've always been grown up. You just finally noticed." Emma hugged him back, then pulled away with sudden seriousness. "But Dad, if she hurts you, I'm going to be really mad at her." "Noted. I mean it. You're the best dad ever. She better know how lucky she is." Adrian's throat tightened. "I love you, Princess." "Love you too. Now get up. You're going to be late, and I bet Victoria notices when you're late." She bounded off the bed and out of the room, leaving Adrian alone with his thoughts and a heart that felt dangerously full. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. Victoria. "Good morning. Couldn't sleep. Kept replaying last night." Adrian smiled, typed back with hands that still remembered the feel of holding hers. Adrian. "Same? Emma ambushed me this morning, demanding details." Victoria. "What did you tell her?" Adrian. "That we had dinner and talked. She said it was the lamest story ever." Victoria. "Smart kid. She deserves better details." Adrian. "She wants to meet you." 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times. Adrian's stomach tightened, wondering if he'd pushed too fast, asked too much. Finally, "I'd love that. Whenever you're ready." Relief flooded through him. Adrian. "Dinner this weekend? Here. Emma insists on helping cook." Victoria. "Perfect. Fair warning, I'm nervous." Adrian. "About meeting a 7-year-old? Victoria. "About meeting the most important person in your life." Adrian stared at those words, feeling the weight of them. Victoria understood. She got it. Emma wasn't just his daughter, she was his whole world, and Victoria was willing to step into that world with respect and genuine care. Adrian. "She's gonna love you." Which, Victoria. "I hope so. See you at work?" Adrian. "Wouldn't miss it." He got up, showered, dressed, went through his morning routine with Emma chattering excitedly about dinner plans and what they should cook and whether Victoria liked dessert. By the time they left for school drop-off, Emma had already planned a 3-course meal that would require skills neither of them possessed. "We'll figure it out," Adrian promised as Emma climbed out of the car. "You always say that." "Because we always do." Emma grinned, grabbed her backpack, then turned back. "Dad, I'm really happy for you." "Thanks, Princess." Now don't mess it up. She ran off before he could respond, leaving Adrian laughing in the school parking lot like an idiot. The drive to work felt different. The same route, same traffic, same morning radio show, but everything had shifted. Adrian caught himself smiling at nothing, thinking about Victoria's laugh, replaying their kiss with the obsessive detail of a teenager. He was in trouble. Deep, complicated, wonderful trouble. Morrison and associates buzzed with the usual Thursday morning energy when Adrian arrived. He grabbed coffee from the machine Victoria had taught him to fix, settled at his desk, and tried to focus on the quarterly reports that needed his attention. He lasted 20 minutes before his phone buzzed. Marcus. Dude, conference room B, now. Adrian frowned, checked his calendar. No meeting scheduled. Adrian. Why? Marcus. Just get here. Something in the message made Adrian's instincts prickle. He saved his work, headed down the hallway, pushed open the conference room door, and found half the office waiting inside. Sarah, Marcus, 3 people from accounting, someone from HR. Even Patricia stood near the windows with an expression that was equal parts amused and exasperated. What is this? Adrian asked slowly. Intervention, Sarah announced cheerfully. For what? For being an idiot. Marcus gestured to an empty chair. Sit. I'm not sitting. I have work. This is more important than work. Sarah pulled out her phone, scrolling through something. We've been watching you and Victoria dance around each other for 6 months. 6 months. Finally, you go on one date and suddenly you're walking around here like you've won the lottery. I don't walk around like anything. You smiled at the coffee machine this morning, someone from accounting said. The coffee machine. And you actually said good morning to Patterson, another voice added. Nobody says good morning to Patterson. Patricia cleared her throat. While I appreciate everyone's enthusiasm, this is technically a workplace and we should probably. Let us have this, Patricia, Sarah interrupted. We've been invested in this relationship since day one. We deserve closure. Adrian looked around the room at faces that were genuinely happy for him, genuinely invested in his personal life in a way that should have been intrusive but somehow just felt supportive. You all need hobbies, he said finally. We have hobbies. This is just more entertaining. Marcus leaned back in his chair. So? How'd it go? Details. I'm not discussing my personal life in a conference room. Come on, man, give us something. We've been rooting for you two forever. Adrian sighed, recognizing a losing battle when he saw one. It went well. We had dinner, talked. It was really good. That's it? Sarah looked outraged. You're giving us nothing. What do you want me to say? Did you kiss her? That's none of your business. Oh, my stars, you kissed her. Sarah literally squealed. I knew it. I knew it. I'm leaving now. Wait. One more question. Marcus held up his hand. Are you guys officially together? Like, is this happening? Adrian paused at the door. Thought about Victoria's texts, her smile, the way she'd asked about meeting Emma. Thought about the terrifying, exhilarating feeling of free-falling into something real. Yeah, he said quietly. This is happening. The room erupted in cheers, actual cheers, like he'd announced a sports victory instead of a relationship. Patricia just shook her head. All right, everyone back to work. And Adrian, I'm happy for you, but please maintain professional boundaries during office hours. Yes, ma'am. He escaped the conference room to find Victoria waiting in the hallway, her expression carefully neutral, but her eyes dancing with amusement. Let me guess. Intervention? How'd you know? They did the same thing to me yesterday. Sarah cornered me in the bathroom with 15 minutes of relationship advice. Adrian groaned. We work with insane people. We work with people who care. Victoria stepped closer, close enough that he could smell her perfume, even if they express it in slightly invasive ways. Slightly? Okay, very invasive. She glanced around, making sure the hallway was empty, then took his hand. The simple contact sent electricity through him. Hi. Hi yourself. I missed you. It's been 14 hours. I know, it's ridiculous. Victoria squeezed his hand. I've turned into one of those people I used to make fun of. Join the club. Emma caught me smiling at my phone this morning. What'd you tell her? That I'm dating someone who makes me happy. Victoria's smile was brilliant. Am I? Making you happy? Incredibly happy, also incredibly nervous. About what? About how fast this feels. How real. Adrian glanced toward the conference room where their coworkers were undoubtedly still discussing them. About everyone watching and waiting for us to either work out or crash and burn. Ignore them. This is ours, not theirs. Victoria's thumb traced circles on his palm, the gesture becoming familiar, grounding. And for what it's worth, I'm nervous too. About meeting Emma? About deserving you, both of you. She looked down at their joined hands. You're letting me into something precious. I don't want to mess it up. You won't. You don't know that. I know you care. I know you're trying. That's enough. Victoria met his eyes, and Adrian saw something flicker there. Guilt? Fear? But it passed too quickly to identify. Saturday? She asked. For dinner? Saturday, 6 o'clock. Prepare yourself for an overly ambitious menu and a very excited 7-year-old. I can't wait. They stood there, hands linked, the morning office chaos happening around them, and Adrian felt that sensation again of his carefully controlled life spinning into beautiful, terrifying uncertainty. We should get back to work, Victoria said eventually. Probably. Neither of them moved. Adrian? Yeah? Thank you for taking a chance on this, on me. He wanted to tell her that she had it backward, that he was the risk here, the single dad with baggage and responsibilities and a life that left little room for romance. But looking at her, seeing the vulnerability in her eyes, he realized they were both taking the same leap. Thank you for asking, he said instead. They separated reluctantly, heading to their respective workspaces. Adrian settled back at his desk, pulled up his quarterly reports, and tried to focus. His phone buzzed. Victoria, this is going to be the longest 2 days of my life. Adrian smiled, typed back. Adrian, Saturday will be worth the wait. Victoria, promise? Adrian, promise. The next 2 days passed in a blur of work, parenting, and constant texting. Victoria sent photos of potential outfits asking Emma's opinion, relayed through Adrian, about what to wear to meet her. Emma took this responsibility with the seriousness of a fashion consultant, rejecting anything too fancy or trying too hard. She should wear jeans, Emma declared Thursday night while they meal prepped. And a nice shirt. Not too nice, just normal nice. I'll pass that along. And tell her we're making lasagna, in case she doesn't like lasagna. Does she like lasagna? I don't know. Dad, this is important. What if we make something she hates? Adrian pulled out his phone, sent a quick message. Adrian, Emma wants to know if you like lasagna. Victoria's response came immediately. Victoria, I love lasagna. Tell Emma she has excellent taste. He showed Emma the message. She beamed with pride. She's going to fit right in, Emma said confidently. You haven't even met her yet. Don't need to. I can tell she's nice because she makes you happy. And she texts with proper punctuation, which means she's smart. That's your criteria? Punctuation? You'd be surprised how much that tells you about a person. Adrian laughed, pulling his daughter into a hug. When did you become so wise? I've always been wise. You're just now catching up. Friday at work, Adrian found himself counting down hours with the anticipation of a kid waiting for Christmas. Victoria seemed equally distracted. They passed each other in hallways with secret smiles, exchanged glances in meetings that made Sarah's stage whisper so obvious, loud enough for everyone to hear. At lunch, they sat together in the cafeteria like always, but everything felt different, more charged, more real. I'm freaking out about tomorrow, Victoria admitted, pushing salad around her plate. Don't! Emma's excited. I'm excited. It's just dinner. It's meeting your daughter. It's not just anything. She's 7. She's going to ask you a million questions, show you her room, probably rope you into a game of make-believe. Just be yourself. Victoria bit her lip. What if myself isn't enough? It will be. Adrian reached across the table, took her hand despite the audience around them. You're already enough for me. Emma's going to see what I see. Which is? Someone genuine. Someone kind. Someone who cares about more than surface things. He paused. Someone who reads printer manuals and buys excessive coffee and texts with proper punctuation. Victoria laughed. Emma told you about the punctuation thing? It's apparently very important. Your daughter and I are going to get along just fine. They finished lunch, parted ways with reluctance, pushed through the rest of their workday with half their usual focus. That evening, Adrian and Emma spent 3 hours preparing for Saturday. They cleaned the townhouse top to bottom, Emma insisting everything had to be perfect. They planned the menu in excruciating detail. They had a lengthy discussion about whether flowers on the table were too much or just right. "You're overthinking this," Adrian said as Emma rearranged the living room throw pillows for the third time. "I want her to like us. She already likes me, and she's going to love you." "How do you know?" "Because you're incredible, smart, funny, kind. What's not to love?" Emma stopped fussing with pillows, turned to face him with unusual seriousness. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you love her? Victoria?" Adrian's breath caught. They'd been on one date. One perfect date, yes, but still just one. Love was a big word, a scary word, a word that carried weight and responsibility and the potential for devastating heartbreak. But sitting there, looking at his daughter's earnest face, Adrian couldn't lie. "I don't know yet, but I could. Easily. That's what scares me." "Why does it scare you?" "Because love means risk. Means trusting someone with important pieces of yourself. Means the possibility of getting hurt." Emma climbed onto the couch beside him, settling into his side like she used to when she was smaller. "But it also means being happy, right?" "Yeah, it does." "Then maybe the risk is worth it." Adrian pulled her closer, overwhelmed by her wisdom, her acceptance, her willingness to let him be vulnerable. "When did you get so smart?" "I keep telling you, I've always been smart." They sat there together, father and daughter, on the eve of something that could change everything. "Emma, what if Victoria and what if this works out? Long term. Would that be okay with you?" Emma was quiet for a moment. "Would she move in with us?" "Maybe. Eventually. If things got serious enough." "Would I have to call her mom?" "No, never. She's not trying to replace your mother. She'd just be Victoria. Someone who cares about both of us." Emma nodded slowly, processing. "Would you still have time for just us? Father-daughter stuff?" "Always. That's non-negotiable. You're my priority. That never changes." "Then, yeah, it would be okay." Emma looked up at him. "I want you to be happy, Dad. You deserve to be happy." Adrian's eyes burned. "I'm happy with you." "I know. But you deserve more than just me. You deserve someone who looks at you the way Victoria does." "How does she look at me?" "Like you're the best thing she's ever seen." Adrian couldn't speak, could only hold his daughter and marvel at her capacity for love, for understanding, for wanting good things for him even when it meant their dynamic might change. "I love you, Princess," he managed finally. "Love you too, Dad. Now can we please finish cleaning? Victoria's coming in less than 24 hours and the bathroom still has toothpaste on the mirror." Adrian laughed, the moment of heavy emotion breaking into something lighter. "Yes, ma'am." They spent the rest of the evening preparing, planning, making everything perfect. That night, after Emma had gone to bed, Adrian sat alone in his living room and let himself feel the full weight of what was happening. He was falling for Victoria Hale. Actually falling. The kind of falling that rearranged your priorities and made you think about futures you'd stopped imagining years ago. It was terrifying, exhilarating, wonderful and scary in equal measure. His phone buzzed. Victoria. "Can't sleep, too nervous about tomorrow." Adrian. "Don't be, it's going to be great." Victoria. "What if Emma doesn't like me?" Adrian. "Impossible. She already likes you based on your punctuation alone." Victoria. "That's a low bar." Adrian. "You exceed it in every way." Victoria. "You're good for my ego." Adrian. "You're good for my everything." He sent it before he could second-guess the vulnerability, the honesty, the raw admission of how much she'd come to mean to him in such a short time. 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times. Finally, "Adrian Blake, you're going to make me cry." Adrian. "Happy tears, I hope." Victoria. "The happiest. See you tomorrow?" Adrian. 6 p.m. Don't be late. Victoria. "Wouldn't dream of it." Adrian set down his phone, looked around his quiet townhouse, the home he'd built for Emma, the life he'd constructed from broken pieces, the carefully controlled world he'd maintained for 6 years. And he made peace with the fact that it was all about to change, because Victoria was worth the risk, worth the fear, worth stepping outside his comfort zone and trusting someone with his heart again. He just hoped she was ready for what came with loving Adrian Blake. The responsibility, the package deal, the reality of dating a single father whose daughter would always come first. But something told him Victoria understood that, accepted it, maybe even loved him for it. Saturday would tell. Saturday would be the beginning of something real. Or it would be the moment when reality crashed into fantasy and they both realized this couldn't work. Adrian went to bed that night with equal parts hope and terror. And across the city, Victoria Hale lay awake in her luxury apartment staring at her phone, reading Adrian's text over and over. "You're good for my everything." She wanted to believe it, wanted to be good for him, wanted to deserve the trust he was placing in her by letting her meet his daughter. But the guilt was becoming unbearable. Every text, every conversation, every moment of genuine connection was built on a foundation of lies. She wasn't just Victoria Hale, senior executive. She was Victoria Hale, billionaire CEO, living a double life. And tomorrow she'd walk into Adrian's home, meet his daughter, become part of his world, all while hiding the biggest truth about herself. She should tell him, should confess everything before this went any further. But the thought of seeing the trust in his eyes turned to betrayal, of watching him realize she'd been lying since the day they met, of losing him before she'd really had him, it was too much. So Victoria made a decision. She'd get through tomorrow, would meet Emma, would prove she could fit into their lives, would show Adrian that she was serious about this, about them. And then, soon, very soon, she'd tell him everything. She'd face the consequences, would accept whatever came. But first she wanted one perfect day. One perfect moment where she was just Victoria, meeting the man she loved and his daughter, without the weight of billions and boardrooms and the life she'd been hiding. Was that so wrong? Victoria stared at her ceiling, knowing the answer but not wanting to accept it. Yes, it was wrong. It was selfish. It was unfair to Adrian and Emma, but she was going to do it anyway. Because for the first time in her life, Victoria Hale had found something that mattered more than money or power or success. She'd found someone who saw her, really saw her, and she wasn't ready to lose him. Not yet. Not when they'd only just begun. Saturday arrived with the kind of nervous energy that made simple tasks feel monumental. Adrian burned toast, spilled coffee, and checked his watch every 5 minutes, despite the fact that Victoria wasn't due for another 8 hours. Emma was no better. She changed outfits 4 times, arranged and rearranged her stuffed animals on her bed, and asked approximately 700 questions about what they should talk about and whether Victoria would think she was smart enough or funny enough or just enough. "You're spiraling," Adrian said gently, finding her in her room staring at her closet like it held the secrets of the universe. "What if she doesn't like me?" "Impossible." "You keep saying that, but you don't know. What if I'm weird? What if I say something stupid? What if—" Adrian knelt down, taking her hands. "Emma, listen to me. Victoria's nervous too. She wants you to like her just as much as you want her to like you." "Really?" "Really. She texted me at 2 in the morning last night, worried about making a good impression." Emma's eyes widened. 2 in the morning? "Couldn't sleep, too nervous." "That makes me feel better?" Emma took a breath. "Okay, I'm wearing the blue dress, final decision." "A perfect choice. And I'm going to be myself, like you always say. Best plan ever." They spent the morning cooking together, or more accurately, attempting to cook together. The lasagna recipe Adrian had chosen turned out to be more complex than anticipated. Sauce went everywhere. Cheese disappeared in quantities that suggested Emma was eating more than she was layering. The kitchen looked like a war zone. "Maybe we should have ordered pizza," Adrian muttered, surveying the damage. "No way. This is perfect. It shows we tried, that we care enough to make an effort." Emma pointed her cheese-covered spoon at him. "Victoria's going to appreciate that. How'd you get so wise about relationships?" "I watch a lot of TV while you're doing laundry." By 3 o'clock, the lasagna was in the oven, the kitchen was semi-clean, and both of them were exhausted from nervous energy and preparation. Go relax, Adrian told Emma. Read, play, do whatever. We've got 3 hours. I can't relax. I'm too nervous. Join the club. Emma flopped on the couch, grabbed her current book, and lasted approximately 4 minutes before she was pacing again. Adrian understood completely. He showered, changed clothes 3 times, settling finally on dark jeans and a gray Henley that Emma approved, and checked his phone obsessively for messages that hadn't arrived. At 5:30, his phone finally buzzed. Victoria, leaving now, officially terrified. At Adrian, we're officially terrified too, you'll fit right in. Victoria, that's oddly comforting. Adrian, see you soon. Victoria, can't wait. He set down his phone, looked at Emma, who'd abandoned all pretense of reading, and was now standing by the window watching for cars. She's on her way. Emma turned, eyes wide. Okay, this is happening. Do I look okay? Is my hair okay? Should I? You look beautiful. The house looks great. Everything's perfect. Nothing's perfect. You're right, but it's real, and real is better than perfect. The words seemed to calm Emma. She nodded, took a breath, and joined Adrian in the living room where they both proceeded to sit in anxious silence for the next 20 minutes. At exactly 6 o'clock, a car pulled up outside. Emma jumped up. She's here! Let her get to the door before you attack her. I'm not going to attack her. I'm going to make a good impression. The doorbell rang. Emma froze. Adrian froze. They looked at each other. You should answer it, Emma whispered. Right, yes, I'm answering it. But for a moment, Adrian couldn't move, because opening that door meant crossing a threshold, meant bringing Victoria into the most important part of his life, meant trusting her with his daughter, his home, his carefully protected world. The doorbell rang again. Dad, she's waiting. Adrian crossed to the door, took a breath, and opened it. Victoria stood on his doorstep holding a bouquet of flowers and looking absolutely terrified. She'd taken Emma's advice: jeans, a soft blue sweater, minimal makeup. Her hair was loose, her smile nervous, and she'd never looked more beautiful. Hi, she said softly. Hi. Adrian stepped aside. Come in. Victoria entered, and Adrian closed the door behind her, sealing them all into this moment together. Emma appeared from the living room, suddenly shy, hanging back near the couch. Victoria saw her and her entire face softened. You must be Emma. Emma nodded, finding her voice. You must be Victoria. I am. It's so nice to finally meet you. Your dad talks about you constantly. He talks about you too. Emma took a step closer. He smiles at his phone because of your texts. Emma, Adrian started, it's true. And you text with proper punctuation, which means you're smart. Victoria laughed, the sound genuine and warm. I appreciate good grammar. It's important. That's what I said. Emma's shyness evaporated. See, Dad, I told you we'd get along. Adrian shook his head, unable to stop smiling. You've been here 30 seconds and you're already ganging up on me. Someone has to keep you humble, Victoria said, handing him the flowers. These are for you, and this, she pulled a small wrapped package from her bag, is for Emma, if that's okay? Emma looked at Adrian for permission. He nodded, curious. Emma took the package, carefully unwrapping it to reveal a book, a beautiful hardcover edition of The Secret Garden. It's my favorite, Victoria said quietly. I read it when I was about your age. I thought you might like it. Emma's eyes went wide. I love this book. We read it in class and I wanted my own copy, but Dad said we needed to wait until my birthday and she stopped, looked at Victoria with something like awe. This is the illustrated edition, with the color plates. I know. The illustrations are what made me fall in love with it. Emma clutched the book to her chest, then suddenly rushed forward and hugged Victoria. Victoria's surprise was evident, but she recovered quickly, hugging Emma back with gentle care. Thank you, Emma whispered. This is the best present ever. You're very welcome. When Emma pulled back, her eyes were shining. She looked at Adrian with an expression that clearly said, I approve, then announced, I'm going to put this in my room, in a special place. I'll be right back. She disappeared upstairs, leaving Adrian and Victoria alone in the entryway. That went well, Victoria said, her relief palpable. You won her over in 3 minutes. I think that's a record. The book was a gamble. I asked Sarah about Emma's interests. Hope that wasn't overstepping. It was perfect. You're perfect. Adrian stepped closer, took her hands. Thank you. For caring enough to ask. For putting thought into this. I wanted to make a good impression. You exceeded it. Victoria smiled, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. I was so nervous, still am. This is important to you, which makes it important to me. Adrian wanted to kiss her, but Emma's footsteps thundered down the stairs, effectively ending the moment. Okay, Emma announced. Time for the official tour. Victoria, you need to see everything so you know we're a good team. Emma, let her breathe. It's fine, Victoria interrupted. I'd love a tour. Emma grabbed Victoria's hand with the confidence of a child who'd already decided this woman was acceptable and led her through the townhouse with running commentary. This is the living room. We watch movies here on Friday nights. Dad lets me pick, but I usually pick something he likes too because we're considerate like that. And this is the kitchen where we cook. Well, Dad cooks. I help. Today we made lasagna, which might be good or might be a disaster, but we tried really hard. Victoria followed along, asking questions, admiring Emma's drawings on the fridge, commenting on the family photos scattered throughout the space. Adrian trailed behind them, watching his daughter show off their life with pride instead of embarrassment, watching Victoria engage with genuine interest instead of polite tolerance. When they reached Emma's room, his daughter pulled Victoria inside with the enthusiasm of a realtor closing a sale. This is my room. I cleaned it special for today. That's my bed. Those are my books. I like to read, like you. And that's my desk where I do homework. Dad helps when it's math because math is hard, but I'm getting better. Victoria examined everything with careful attention. I like your room. It's very you. How do you know? You just met me. Because it's colorful and creative and full of personality, just like you seem to be. Emma beamed. Do you want to see my favorite stuffed animal? His name is Mr. Hopscotch, and he's a rabbit, and I've had him since I was 2, and… Emma, maybe give Victoria some space, Adrian suggested from the doorway. I don't mind, Victoria said quickly. I want to know about Mr. Hopscotch. Emma launched into the rabbit's extensive backstory, while Victoria listened with the focus of someone actually interested. Adrian leaned against the door frame, watching them together, and felt something crack open in his chest. This could work. This could actually work. Eventually, Emma's energy began to wind down, and Adrian managed to extract them from the bedroom with promises that Victoria would return for a full reading session later. Dinner should be ready, he said, checking his watch. If we didn't completely destroy it. They gathered in the kitchen, working together to set the table. Emma assigned seats with the strategic precision of a wedding planner, placing herself between Adrian and Victoria so she could facilitate conversation. The lasagna turned out surprisingly edible. Not perfect, but honest effort made manifest in cheese and pasta. This is delicious, Victoria said after her first bite. You don't have to lie, Adrian replied. I'm not. It's really good. You can taste the love that went into it. Emma giggled. That's the cheese. We used a lot of cheese. The cheese helps. They ate and talked, conversation flowing easily. Emma asked Victoria questions with the directness only children could pull off. Where did you grow up? London, in England. Do you miss it? Sometimes, but I like it here too. Do you have any brothers or sisters? No, I'm an only child. Like you. Being an only child is cool because you get all the attention, but sometimes it's lonely. Victoria's expression shifted, something vulnerable crossing her face. It can be. That's very perceptive of you. I'm perceptive. Dad says so. Emma took another bite of lasagna. Do you like my dad? Emma? Adrian started. I do, Victoria said clearly. Very much. Good. Because he likes you too. A lot. He smiles at his phone and everything. So you've mentioned. I think you're good for him. He's been sad for a long time. Not sad, but like quiet sad. But now he's happy. Real happy. Because of you. Adrian's throat tightened. He hadn't realized Emma had noticed. Hadn't known she'd been watching him closely enough to see the loneliness he'd tried to hide. Victoria reached under the table, found his hand, squeezed. I'm happy because of him too. Emma nodded, satisfied. Okay then, you can stay. I'm glad I have your approval. You do. But if you hurt my dad, I'm going to be really mad at you, just so you know. Emma. Adrian's face heated. What? It's true. You're important. Victoria should know that. Victoria looked at Emma with something like wonder. You're absolutely right. He is important, and I promise I'm going to try my very best not to hurt him. Good enough. Emma returned to her dinner. Can we have dessert soon? I helped make brownies. You made brownies and lasagna? We're ambitious, Adrian said. After dinner, they moved to the living room. Emma insisted on showing Victoria her favorite movie, an animated film about a girl who saves her village through courage and determination. They settled on the couch, Emma between them, and watched as the story unfolded. Halfway through, Emma's head drooped onto Victoria's shoulder. Victoria looked at Adrian with surprise and something that might have been joy. She carefully adjusted her position, letting Emma get comfortable, and continued watching the movie like having a sleeping 7-year-old on her shoulder was the most natural thing in the world. Adrian's heart felt too big for his chest. When the movie ended, Emma was fully asleep, breathing softly against Victoria's arm. I should put her to bed, Adrian whispered. Let me help. Together, they carefully lifted Emma, Adrian taking most of her weight while Victoria supported her legs. They carried her upstairs, tucked her into bed, and stood there for a moment watching her sleep. She's wonderful, Victoria said softly. She likes you. Really likes you. The feeling's mutual. They crept back downstairs, suddenly alone for the first time all evening. Adrian closed Emma's door quietly, turned to find Victoria watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Thank you, he said, for tonight, for caring about her, for making the effort. I didn't have to make an effort. She makes it easy. Still, not everyone would. Adrian stopped, struggling with words. When Emma's mother left, she said being a parent was too hard, too much responsibility, too much sacrifice. She couldn't handle it. Victoria moved closer. I'm not her mother. I know, but dating me means dating both of us. It's a package deal. And I need to know you understand that. Need to know you're ready for what that means. Adrian, Victoria took his hands. I spent tonight with you and your daughter. I watched you two work together in the kitchen. Saw how she looks at you like you hung the moon. Listened to her talk about her life with such joy and confidence because you've given her that foundation. She paused. I don't see a burden. I see a beautiful life that I'm honored you're letting me be part of. Adrian pulled her close, holding her like she might disappear if he let go. I'm falling for you, really falling, and it terrifies me. I'm falling too. Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. Have been for months. They stood there in his hallway, wrapped in each other, the quiet house settling around them. Stay, Adrian said suddenly. Not like that, just stay. We could watch a movie, talk, just be together. I'd like that. They migrated to the living room, settling on the couch with careful space between them that gradually disappeared as they relaxed. Adrian found a movie neither of them really watched, too focused on each other, on the conversation that flowed between them. Victoria told him about her childhood, boarding schools, parents who loved her but were always busy, the loneliness of growing up with everything except what mattered most. Adrian shared more about Emma's early years, the terror of being a single parent, the small victories that felt like moving mountains. At some point, Victoria's head found his shoulder. His arm settled around her waist. They fit together like pieces that had been waiting to connect. Can I ask you something? Victoria said during a quiet moment. Anything. Do you ever think about the future? Like, really think about it? All the time. Comes with being a parent. You're constantly planning ahead. I mean your future, not just Emma's. What do you want? Adrian was quiet, considering. Honestly, I stopped thinking about what I wanted years ago. Everything became about what Emma needed. That's not what I asked, he smiled. You're persistent. It's one of my better qualities. Okay, what do I want? Adrian thought about it seriously. Stability, happiness, someone to share life with, someone who gets that Emma comes first but still wants to be part of our world, someone who makes me laugh and challenges me and sees me as more than just a dad. That sounds reasonable. What about you? What do you want? Victoria tensed against him. Honesty. Trust. Someone who sees me for who I am, not what I can offer them. Someone real. You have that with me. I know. Her voice sounded strained. That's what makes this so... She stopped herself. So important. I don't want to mess it up. You won't. You don't know that. Adrian turned to look at her, caught by the intensity in her voice. Victoria, what's wrong? Nothing. She met his eyes, and he saw guilt there. Actual guilt. There are things about me you don't know. Things I should probably tell you. His stomach tightened. Okay, tell me. She opened her mouth, then closed it. The guilt in her eyes warred with fear. It's complicated, she said finally. Most important things are. I'm not who you think I am. Adrian's heart rate picked up. What does that mean? Victoria pulled away, putting space between them on the couch. She looked like she was gathering courage for something difficult. My job at Morrison and Associates. The senior executive position. It's not the whole truth. Okay. I have family money, yes, but it's more than just a trust fund. She took a breath. My family owns a large company, very large. International. How large? Multinational conglomerate large. Billions in revenue large. Adrian processed this. It explained the apartment, the expensive watch he'd noticed, the way she sometimes seemed out of place in their modest office setting. You come from serious money. Yes. And you didn't tell me because I wanted you to know me first. Just me. Not Victoria Hale, whose family has money. Not Victoria Hale, who people see as a connection or an opportunity. She looked at him with pleading eyes. I wanted you to see me. Adrian sat with this, turning it over in his mind. It was a bigger secret than he'd expected, yes. But it also made sense. Explained things that hadn't quite added up. I get it, he said slowly. The wanting to be seen for yourself thing. I really do. You're not mad? Should I be? I lied. By omission, but still. I let you believe I was just another executive when I'm actually... What? Rich? Adrian shrugged. Victoria, I don't care about your money. Never have. You could be a billionaire or broke, and it wouldn't change how I feel about you. Victoria's expression was strange. A billionaire? It's hyperbole. The point is, money doesn't matter to me. You matter. The person you are matters. He reached for her hand. The woman who reads printer manuals and asks about Emma and makes an effort to fit into our lives. That's who I care about. The rest is just details. Victoria looked like she might cry. You really mean that? Every word. She launched herself at him, kissing him with an intensity that spoke of relief and gratitude and something deeper. Adrian kissed her back, holding her close, trying to convey without words that she was enough, just as she was. When they pulled apart, both breathless, Victoria rested her forehead against his. I don't deserve you, she whispered. You absolutely do. There's more. Things I should explain about the company and my role, and later. Adrian kissed her softly. We have time. You don't have to tell me everything tonight, but I want to be honest with you. Then be honest, but in your own time. When you're ready. He pulled back to look at her. I'm not going anywhere, Victoria. We're building something here. Something real. And real things take time to develop properly. She nodded, some of the tension leaving her body. Thank you. For understanding. For not making this harder than it already is. We're a team now. That's what teams do. They settled back into each other, the movie long forgotten, just talking quietly about everything and nothing. Victoria shared more about her family's business, carefully editing details, Adrian noticed, but he didn't push. She'd tell him when she was ready. Around 11, Victoria reluctantly said she should go. I don't want to, she admitted, but I also don't want to overstay my welcome. You could never overstay. But yeah, it's late. And Emma will have questions tomorrow if you're here for breakfast. Questions I'm not ready to answer. Questions like, when's the wedding and can I be a flower girl? Victoria laughed. She moves fast. She knows what she wants, like her dad. They stood at the door, prolonging goodbye with soft touches and softer words. Tonight was perfect, Victoria said. Emma is incredible. Your home is wonderful. I'm so glad you let me be part of this. First of many times, I hope. Definitely. She kissed him gently. Thank you, Adrian, for trusting me with something so precious. Thank you for being worth the trust. One more kiss, and then Victoria was gone, her car disappearing down the street, leaving Adrian standing in his doorway with a heart that felt dangerously full. He cleaned up the kitchen, his mind replaying the evening. Emma's excitement, Victoria's genuine care, the way they'd all fit together like pieces of a puzzle finding their places. And that moment on the couch, when Victoria had tried to tell him something important, something that clearly weighed on her but hadn't been able to find the words. Adrian knew there was more she wasn't saying, could sense the secret she was still holding back. But he also knew that trust took time, that people revealed themselves in layers, that pushing too hard could break something fragile and new. So he'd wait, would let Victoria tell him in her own time, would prove that whatever she was hiding couldn't change how he felt about her. Upstairs, Emma's door opened. She appeared at the top of the stairs, rubbing her eyes. Did Victoria leave? Yeah, Princess. You fell asleep during the movie. Emma patted down the stairs, settling beside him on the couch. I like her, Dad. A lot. I'm glad. She's not trying too hard. Some grown-ups try too hard with kids, but Victoria just talked to me like I'm a person. I like that. She respects you, sees how smart you are, and she really likes you. I could tell. Emma yawned. Are you going to marry her? Adrian choked on air. What? We've been on 2 dates. So? When you know what you know. That's what they say in movies. Life isn't a movie, Princess. But you like her, and she likes you, and I like her. What else matters? Adrian pulled Emma close. It's more complicated than that. Why do grown-ups always make things complicated? Fair question. He kissed the top of her head. But yeah, I really like her. And I'm glad you do too. Good, because I already decided she can stay. Emma pulled back, suddenly serious. But Dad, if she ever hurts you, I meant what I said. I'll be really mad at her. Noted. Now back to bed. It's late. Emma trudged upstairs, pausing at the top to look back. I'm happy for you, Dad. You deserve good things. So do you, Princess, so do you. After Emma had returned to bed, Adrian sat alone in his quiet living room and let himself feel everything he'd been holding back. Hope. Genuine hope for a future that included more than just responsibility and routine. Fear. Bone-deep fear that this could all fall apart, that he was setting himself up for heartbreak, that trusting someone again could destroy him. Love. Because he was already there, already too far gone to pull back. He loved Victoria Hale. Maybe not completely yet. Not with the depth that came from years together. But the foundation was there, growing stronger every day. His phone buzzed. Victoria. Home safe. Can't stop thinking about tonight. About you. About Emma. About how lucky I am. Adrian. We're the lucky ones. Victoria. Can I see you tomorrow? Both of you? Maybe brunch or a park? I'm not ready to wait until Monday. Adrian smiled, his heart expanding. Adrian. Emma will love that. Text me when you wake up. We'll make plans. Victoria. Good night, Adrian Blake. Sweet dreams. Adrian. Good night, Victoria Hale. Dream of us. He sat there holding his phone, reading their messages, marveling at how much his life had changed in 1 week. 7 days ago, he'd been living in careful routine, heart locked away, convinced that romance was a luxury he couldn't afford. Now he was falling in love with a woman who fit into his life like she'd always belonged there. A woman his daughter adored. A woman who made him believe in possibilities he'd stopped imagining. It was terrifying and wonderful and perfect and complicated. But maybe that's what real love was supposed to be. Not easy or simple or guaranteed, just real, honest, worth fighting for. Adrian finally headed to bed, exhausted and energized in equal measure. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new moments, new steps forward in building something that mattered. But tonight had been everything. Tonight had been proof that taking risks could lead to beautiful things, that opening his heart again hadn't destroyed him, it had saved him. And that sometimes the best things in life came in unexpected packages, wrapped in vulnerability and trust and the courage to try again. Adrian fell asleep with a smile on his face and Victoria's goodnight text still glowing on his phone. Across the city, Victoria lay in her expensive bed in her luxury apartment and felt the weight of her deception crushing her chest. She'd tried to tell him, had started to confess the full truth, but fear had stopped her. Because Adrian had said he wouldn't care if she were a billionaire, had said money didn't matter. But he'd said it like a hypothetical, like an exaggeration, not like a reality he'd actually have to confront. And Victoria knew with sick certainty, that there was a difference between not caring about family money and not caring about being a CEO worth billions who'd been lying about her identity since day one. The guilt was becoming unbearable, but so was the love. She loved Adrian Blake, completely, desperately, in a way she'd never loved anyone. And she loved his daughter, loved their life, loved the way they'd welcomed her in without hesitation. She wanted to be part of it, wanted to wake up to family breakfasts and movie nights, and the beautiful, ordinary moments that made life worth living. But she was living a lie, and lies had a way of destroying everything they touched. Victoria stared at her ceiling, tears tracking down her temples, and made a decision. She'd tell him. Soon, very soon. She'd confess everything, who she really was, why she'd hidden it, what it would mean for their future if he still wanted one. She'd accept the consequences, would understand if he couldn't forgive the deception. But first, she'd have tomorrow. One more perfect day with Adrian and Emma. One more moment of being just Victoria before she became Victoria Hale, billionaire, CEO, and risked losing everything that mattered. It was selfish, it was wrong, it was unfair. But Victoria Hale, woman who'd had everything except what she really wanted, was going to take it anyway. Because for the first time in her life, she'd found something worth protecting. Even if protecting it meant postponing the truth that could destroy it. Sunday morning arrived with sunshine streaming through Adrian's bedroom window, and Emma bursting through his door at 7:30 with the energy of someone who'd mainlined espresso. "Dad, Victoria texted. She wants to get brunch. Can we go? Please, please, please." Adrian groaned, checking his phone through bleary eyes. Sure enough, Victoria had messaged at 7. Victoria: "Good morning. I know it's early, but I couldn't sleep. Park and brunch today? My treat. I promised to let Emma pick the place." He smiled despite his exhaustion. "Adrian, Emma's already planning the entire day. Give us an hour to get ready?" Victoria: "Perfect. I'll pick you both up at 8:30. "She's picking us up in an hour," Adrian told Emma. "Think you can be ready?" Emma was already running toward her room. "I've been ready since I woke up." They managed to get dressed, fed, and presentable by 8:25. Emma changed outfits twice, insisted Adrian wear the blue shirt Victoria likes, and spent 10 minutes arranging her hair in a way that looked exactly the same as when she started. When Victoria's car pulled up, a sleek sedan that probably cost more than Adrian made in a year, Emma practically flew out the door. Victoria stepped out, dressed casually in jeans and a cream sweater, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked nervous and happy and beautiful. "Good morning," she said, catching Emma, who'd launched herself into a hug. "Good morning. Dad let me pick where we eat, and I chose the Pancake Palace because they have chocolate chip pancakes that are amazing, and you're going to love them." "Sold. I love chocolate chip pancakes." Victoria's eyes met Adrian's over Emma's head. The look that passed between them held last night's intimacy, this morning's anticipation, and something deeper that made Adrian's heart skip. He crossed to her, pressed a quick kiss to her cheek. "Morning." "Morning." Her smile was soft, private. "Sleep well?" "Eventually." "You?" "Not really. Kept thinking about last night." "Me too." Emma pulled back, looking between them with satisfaction. "Okay, you two are being gross and cute at the same time. Can we go eat now?" The Pancake Palace was exactly what it sounded like. A family restaurant with sticky tables, crayons for kids, and portions that could feed small armies. Emma led them to her favorite booth, slid in beside Victoria like they'd been doing this forever, and immediately started coloring the kids' menu with serious concentration. "So," Victoria said, watching Emma create what appeared to be a purple unicorn, "what's the plan after breakfast?" "The park," Emma announced without looking up. "The one with the good swings and the duck pond. We go every Sunday when it's nice out." "Sounds perfect." They ordered chocolate chip pancakes for Emma, blueberry for Victoria, plain for Adrian, who couldn't handle sugar this early. While they waited, Emma peppered Victoria with questions. Do you have any pets? No, I travel too much, but I've always wanted a dog. What kind? Golden retriever, maybe? Or a rescue? Something that needs a good home. Emma nodded approvingly. That's a good answer. What's your favorite color? Green, like forest green. Favorite movie? Pride and Prejudice, the 2005 version. I haven't seen that one. We'll have to fix that. Victoria glanced at Adrian. If your dad says it's okay. Please, Dad? Can we watch it sometime? Adrian held up his hands. I'm not standing between you two and a movie night. Their food arrived, and they ate while Emma continued her interrogation disguised as conversation. Victoria answered every question with patience and genuine interest, never talking down to Emma, treating her like a person whose opinions mattered. Adrian watched them together, his heart doing complicated things in his chest. Dad, you're staring, Emma said without looking up from her pancakes. Just appreciating the moment. That's what old people say when they're being sappy, Victoria laughed. Your daughter is savage. She gets it from her mother's side, Adrian deadpanned. Hey, I'm right here. After breakfast, they drove to Riverside Park, the one Emma had claimed. It was crowded with Sunday families, kids running wild, couples walking hand in hand, the kind of scene that represented normal life in its best form. Emma made a beeline for the swings. Victoria, push me! Emma, let her breathe, Adrian started. I'd love to. Victoria followed Emma to the swing set, and soon they were soaring, Emma's laughter carrying across the playground. Adrian hung back, watching. A dad nearby caught his eye, nodded in that universal parent acknowledgement. Beautiful family, the man said. Adrian opened his mouth to correct him, to explain that Victoria was his girlfriend, not Emma's mother, that they'd only been dating a week. But the words died on his tongue. Because looking at them, Victoria pushing Emma on the swing, both of them laughing, fitting together so naturally, it did look like a family. It felt like a family. And Adrian wanted it to be one. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He wasn't just falling for Victoria. He was imagining a future with her. A real future. The kind that involved shared mornings and bedtime stories and all the messy, beautiful complications of building a life together. Yeah, he said finally. They're pretty great. After the swings, they walked to the duck pond. Emma had smuggled bread from breakfast specifically for this purpose. They stood at the water's edge, tossing pieces to ducks who fought over them with the aggression of competitive eaters. This is nice, Victoria said softly, standing close enough to Adrian that their shoulders brushed. Really nice. It's our Sunday tradition, has been for 3 years. I'm honored you're sharing it with me. Emma ran ahead, chasing a particularly brave duck, giving them a moment of privacy. Last night, Victoria started, her voice tight, what I told you about the family business. We don't have to talk about that now. But I want to. I need to. She turned to face him fully. Adrian, I haven't been completely honest with you. His stomach dropped. Okay, the family business. It's not just large. It's... She took a breath. It's Hale Industries. The name registered dimly. He'd heard it before, seen it in business news he didn't really follow. Something about international manufacturing, tech investments, massive growth. Hale Industries, he repeated slowly. My grandfather started it. My father expanded it. And I, Victoria's hands twisted together. I run it now. I'm the CEO, the majority shareholder, the person Forbes writes articles about. Adrian processed this information, puzzle pieces clicking into place. The luxury apartment, the expensive car, the way she sometimes seemed uncomfortable in their modest office setting. You're a CEO, yes. Of a billion-dollar company. 12 billion, actually. Victoria looked miserable. I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner, should have been honest from the start, but you wanted to be seen as just Victoria. Yes, exactly. Relief flickered across her face. Is that okay? Do you understand? Adrian looked at her, this woman who'd hidden such a massive part of herself because she'd been hurt too many times by people who only saw dollar signs, who'd created an entire false identity just to experience being ordinary, who'd fallen for him while carrying the weight of that deception. I understand, he said carefully. But Victoria, that's a pretty big secret. I know, And you've been lying since the day we met. Not lying, just not telling the whole truth. That's still lying. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. You're right. You're absolutely right. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was going to tell you last night, but I got scared and… She stopped, wiping at her eyes. I don't want to lose you, either of you. This week has been the happiest I've been in years, and the thought of it ending because I was too much of a coward to be honest. Hey! Adrian caught her hands. Stop. Breathe. She took a shaky breath. I'm not going to lie and say this doesn't change things, Adrian said slowly. Because it does. You're not just Victoria with family money. You're Victoria who runs a multinational corporation. That's a different reality. I know. But here's the thing. He squeezed her hands. I meant what I said last night. Money doesn't matter to me. Your job doesn't matter to me. What matters is who you are when you're with us. And that person, the one who reads to Emma and asks about my day and tries really hard to fit into our world, that person is real. Right? So real, the realest I've ever been. Then that's what matters. Victoria looked at him like he'd hung the moon. You mean that? Every word, though I have questions. Of course, anything. What are you actually doing at Morrison and Associates? Why work there at all? Victoria took a breath. I needed a break. The CEO life. It's constant pressure, constant scrutiny, constant people wanting things from you. I was burning out at 30, so I made a deal with my board. 1 year sabbatical. 1 year to live a normal life, work a normal job, be a normal person. So the senior executive position is real but also a cover. I do the work, attend the meetings, contribute to projects, but it's a fraction of my real job. She looked down. I wanted to know what it felt like to be ordinary, to have conversations that weren't about stock prices or mergers, to meet people who saw me as a person, not an opportunity. And then you met me. And then I met you. This man who left work on time, who asked good questions, who treated me like I was interesting but not special, who made me laugh, who made me feel seen. Victoria's voice cracked. And I fell for you, completely, before I knew how to tell you the truth without losing you. Adrian pulled her close, holding her while she trembled against him. You're not going to lose me. How can you be so sure? Because I'm falling for you too. The real you. All of you. He pulled back to look at her. Yes, this is a lot to process. Yes, it's going to take some adjustment. But Victoria, I don't care if you're a CEO or a janitor. I care that you're kind, that you care about Emma, that you make me want to be brave enough to try again. Even though I lied? You kept a secret because you'd been hurt. I understand that more than you know. He brushed tears from her cheeks. But moving forward, we need honesty. Complete honesty. No more secrets. No more secrets, Victoria promised. I swear. Emma chose that moment to run back, stopping short when she saw Victoria's tears. Why are you crying? Did Dad say something mean? Because if he did, I'll yell at him. Victoria laughed wetly. No, sweetheart. Happy tears. Your dad said something very kind. Oh, okay then. Emma eyed them suspiciously. You guys are being weird again. We're being honest, Adrian corrected. Victoria just told me something important. What? Adrian looked at Victoria, who nodded permission. Victoria has a very important job. She runs a big company, a really big company. Emma processed this. Bigger than Morrison and Associates? Much bigger, Victoria said. Cool. Can I still call you Victoria, or do I have to call you something fancy? Victoria is perfect. Good, because I already decided that's your name. Emma grabbed Victoria's hand. Come on. There's a really cool tree over there I want to show you. Just like that, the revelation that would have been catastrophic to most relationships was processed and dismissed by a 7-year-old who cared more about cool trees than corporate hierarchies. Victoria looked at Adrian with wonder. He shrugged. Kids have priorities, they're just different from ours. They spent the rest of the morning at the park. The conversation light, the atmosphere relaxed. But Adrian could feel something had shifted. The last barrier between them had fallen. No more secrets, no more hiding, just the messy, complicated truth of who they both were. Around noon, Emma announced she was starving, despite having consumed her weight in pancakes 3 hours earlier. They packed into Victoria's car and she drove them back toward Adrian's townhouse. Actually, Victoria said as they approached his street, could we make a detour? There's something I want to show you both, if that's okay. Adrian glanced at Emma, who nodded enthusiastically. Lead the way. Victoria drove across town to a neighborhood Adrian rarely visited, old houses with character, tree-lined streets, the kind of area where families put down roots and stayed for generations. She pulled up to a charming two-story house with a for sale sign in the yard. Cream-colored siding, black shutters, a porch that begged for rocking chairs and summer evenings. What's this? Adrian asked. Victoria's hands gripped the steering wheel. I've been looking at houses, real houses, not apartments. Places where I could actually live instead of just exist. She gestured to the house. This one went on the market yesterday. I saw it this morning before I texted you, and I couldn't stop thinking. She stopped, took a breath. I'm getting ahead of myself. Victoria, Adrian said gently. What are you saying? I'm saying that my year of ordinary life ends in 3 months, and I have to decide what comes next. Go back to the CEO job full-time, living in penthouses and flying between cities, or, she turned to look at him, or build something different, something real, something here. Adrian's heart pounded. You'd give up being CEO? Not entirely. I'd still run the company, still be involved, but differently. From here, with boundaries, with a life outside boardrooms. Victoria's eyes were intense. I spent 10 years building a corporation. I don't want to spend the next 10 building nothing else. I want a home, a family, a life that matters for reasons that have nothing to do with profit margins. That's a huge decision. I know, and I'm not asking you to. She stopped, chose her words carefully. I'm not asking for promises or commitments we're not ready for. We've been dating a week, I know that. But Adrian, I need you to know I'm serious about this. About us. About building something real with you and Emma, if you'll have me. Emma, who'd been unusually quiet, spoke up from the back seat. I like this house. They both turned to look at her. It has good energy, Emma continued seriously, and there's a tree in the backyard, perfect for a swing, and the porch is the right size for summer reading, and she looked at Victoria. And if you lived here, you'd be close enough to visit all the time. Victoria's smile was tremulous. Would you like that? Me visiting all the time? Yeah, I would. Emma's voice was matter-of-fact. You make Dad happy, and you're nice to me, and you don't treat me like I'm stupid just because I'm a kid. So yeah, I'd like you around more. Adrian felt his throat tighten. His daughter, his careful, perceptive daughter, had just given her blessing in the most Emma way possible. Can we look inside? Victoria asked. I have the realtor's number. We could get a showing. Adrian wanted to say it was too fast, too much, too soon, but looking at the house, imagining Victoria living there, imagining Sunday mornings that ended with walking Emma home instead of saying goodbye, he couldn't make himself refuse. Yeah, let's look. Victoria made a call, and 20 minutes later a realtor arrived with keys and a professional smile. They toured the house, 3 bedrooms, updated kitchen, hardwood floors, a backyard that Emma immediately claimed for future adventures. It was perfect, warm and welcoming, and everything a home should be. The owners are motivated sellers, the realtor explained, looking for a quick close. With the right offer, you could be in by next month. After the tour, they stood on the porch while Emma explored the backyard. I shouldn't have brought you here, Victoria said quietly. It's too much pressure, too fast. Maybe, but I'm glad you did. Adrian leaned against the railing. It helps me understand where your head is, what you're thinking about. I'm thinking about building a life here, a real one, with you. She moved closer. If you want that, no pressure, no expectations, just possibility. Adrian pulled her into his arms, holding her while his mind raced through implications and complications and the terrifying, wonderful reality of what she was offering. I want it, he said into her hair. I want you here, in our lives, building something real. But Victoria, we have to be smart about this. We've known each other 8 months, but only been dating a week. That's fast. I know. And you're talking about restructuring your entire life for someone you barely know. I'm not restructuring my life for you. I'm restructuring it for me, because I want to be happy. Because I want to wake up in a place that feels like home. Because I'm tired of living a life that looks perfect on paper, but feels empty in practice. She pulled back to look at him. You and Emma are part of that decision, yes. A big part. But even if things don't work out between us, which I really hope they do, I'd still want this. This life. This choice. And the company? I'll hire a COO to handle day-to-day operations, still be involved in major decisions, still chair the board, but from here, with boundaries, with a life. Victoria's hands framed his face. I've spent 10 years sacrificing everything for success. I don't want to spend the next 10 regretting what I sacrificed. Adrian kissed her, soft and deep, pouring everything he couldn't say into the contact. When they pulled apart, Emma was watching from the backyard with a knowing smile. You two are gross, she called, but also cute. We're containing multitudes, Adrian called back. Emma giggled, returning to her exploration. So, Victoria said, what do we do now? Now we take this one day at a time. You make whatever decision is right for you about the house, the company, your life. Not because of me, because of what you want. Adrian tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. And we keep dating, keep getting to know each other, keep building whatever this is between us. No pressure for it to be more than it is. No pressure. Just possibility. Victoria sagged against him in relief. I can work with possibility. They stayed at the house for another hour, Emma playing in the backyard while Adrian and Victoria sat on the porch steps talking through logistics, complications, and the 1,000 small details that came with restructuring a life. My board is going to fight this, Victoria admitted. They think taking this sabbatical was already risky. When I tell them I want to make it permanent, want to run the company remotely with limited travel, they're going to push back hard. Then push back harder. It's your company, right? Technically, but there are investors, stakeholders, people whose opinions matter. Do their opinions matter more than your happiness? Victoria was quiet for a long moment. No, they don't. Then that's your answer. She leaned her head on his shoulder. When did you get so wise? Single parenthood forces you to prioritize what actually matters. And what matters? Adrian gestured to Emma, who was currently trying to climb the tree she'd claimed as perfect for swinging. Her, always her. Everything else is negotiable. That's what I love about you. Your clarity, your priorities. You know what matters, and you don't apologize for it. Adrian's heart stuttered on one particular word. Love? Victoria stiffened. I mean, that's not... I didn't mean to... Victoria. He turned to face her fully. Do you love me? Her eyes were wide, vulnerable. We've been dating a week. That's not an answer. It's too soon. Still not an answer. Victoria took a shaky breath. Yes, I love you. I've been falling for months, and this week just made it undeniable, and I know it's crazy and too fast and probably really stupid, but yes, I love you. Adrian's world tilted on its axis. Not because the words surprised him. He'd felt it in every touch, every look, every moment they'd shared, but because hearing them out loud made it real, made it something they couldn't take back or pretend didn't exist. I love you too, he said quietly. Victoria's breath caught. Really? Really? Probably have for a while. Was just too scared to admit it. And now? Now I'm still scared, terrified actually, but I'm also done letting fear make my decisions. Adrian pulled her close. I love you, Victoria Hale, all of you. The CEO and the woman who reads printer manuals. The billionaire and the person who gets nervous meeting 7-year-olds. All of it. Victoria kissed him with an intensity that spoke of relief and joy and promises neither of them was ready to make out loud, but both of them felt in their bones. When they pulled apart, Emma was standing at the bottom of the porch steps, watching them with satisfaction. Finally, she announced, you two were being so obvious it was painful. How long have you been standing there? Adrian asked. Long enough. Victoria said she loves you. You said you love her. I approve. Can we get lunch now? I'm starving. Victoria laughed, the sound bright and free. Yes. Lunch? Definitely. They left the house, Victoria promising to call the realtor later, and spent the afternoon together. Lunch at Emma's choice of restaurant, followed by ice cream because Victoria insisted celebrations required it, followed by a walk through downtown where they window shopped and Emma charmed Victoria into promising future shopping trips. By the time they made it back to Adrian's townhouse, it was late afternoon. Emma was dragging with exhaustion, the day's excitement catching up with her. "Nap time," Adrian announced. "I don't nap. I'm 7. "Quiet time, then," Emma grumbled, but headed upstairs, pausing to hug Victoria goodbye. "You're coming back, right?" Emma asked. "Definitely." "Good, because we have a movie night planned. Pride and Prejudice, don't forget." "Wouldn't dream of it." After Emma disappeared upstairs, Adrian and Victoria stood in his living room, suddenly awkward with the weight of everything they'd said today. "So," Victoria started, "we're in love." "Apparently. That's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. But also kind of wonderful." Adrian pulled her close. "Very wonderful, also very fast, also very complicated given your actual job and my responsibilities and the fact that we still barely know each other's favorite foods. You like your coffee black with 1 sugar. You hate mushrooms. You'd eat tacos every day if Emma let you." Victoria smiled. "I know more than you think. You like terrible coffee and excessive amounts of it. You run 5 miles every morning even though you hate it. You cry at animated movies." Adrian kissed her forehead. "I've been paying attention too. So what do we do now?" "Now you go home and think about that house, about what you really want, about whether restructuring your life is something you want regardless of us. And if I decide I want it, then we figure it out together, one day at a time." Adrian held her gaze. "But Victoria, I need you to be sure. Not because of me, because of you. I can't be the reason you give up something you've worked your whole life for." "You're not. You're the reason I'm brave enough to choose something different." She kissed him softly. "I'll call you tonight? Please." One more kiss, deeper, filled with promise and possibility. Then Victoria was gone, leaving Adrian alone in his quiet house with a sleeping daughter upstairs and a heart that felt dangerously full. He spent the evening in a daze, going through the motions of dinner and homework, help and bedtime routines while his mind processed everything that had happened. Victoria loved him. He loved her. She was considering buying a house, restructuring her life, choosing happiness over corporate success. It was everything he'd stopped letting himself hope for, and it terrified him. Because loving someone meant risking everything, meant trusting them with pieces of yourself that could be shattered, meant the possibility of devastating loss. But it also meant possibility, growth, the chance at building something beautiful with someone who saw you and chose you anyway. At 9 o'clock, after Emma was asleep, his phone rang. "Hi," Victoria said softly. "Hi yourself." "I called the realtor, made an offer on the house." Adrian's heart stopped. "You did? Full asking price, cash close in 3 weeks." Victoria's voice shook slightly. "I'm doing this. I'm choosing this life, this city, this possibility." "Victoria, I know what you said about being sure it's for me and not because of you, and it is. I swear it is." She took a breath. "But Adrian, you and Emma are part of why this feels right. Why the idea of a real home in a real neighborhood with real relationships feels like something worth building. You showed me what I was missing, what I want. And the company? I talked to my board chair tonight, told him I'm restructuring my role. He's not happy, but he'll adjust. They need me more than I need them." Pride crept into her voice. "I built that company into what it is. I can run it on my terms now." Adrian sat with this, processing the magnitude of what she was doing. "Are you scared?" "Terrified. This is the biggest risk I've ever taken." "Me too. Being with you, letting Emma get attached, opening my heart again." He paused. "But I think the best things in life require risk. Wise man once told me that fear shouldn't make our decisions." "Sounds like a smart guy." "The smartest." Victoria's voice softened. "I love you, Adrian Blake." "I love you too, Victoria Hale." They talked for another hour, about everything and nothing, about hopes and fears and the future they were cautiously building together. When they finally hung up, Adrian sat in his quiet living room and let himself believe. Believe that second chances were real, that love could survive risk, that opening his heart again hadn't destroyed him. It had saved him. Upstairs, Emma slept peacefully, unaware that her father's carefully controlled world had transformed into something messier and more beautiful than he'd ever imagined. And across the city, Victoria Hale, billionaire CEO, who'd spent 10 years building an empire, started building something infinitely more valuable: a life, a home, a future with people who saw past the money and the power to the woman underneath. 3 weeks later, Victoria moved into the house with the cream siding and perfect porch. Adrian and Emma helped, spending a Saturday carrying boxes and arranging furniture, and christening each room with laughter and paint samples and discussions about where things belonged. Emma claimed the backyard tree, which Adrian promptly equipped with the promised swing. Victoria set up a home office that would connect her to boardrooms around the world while keeping her grounded in the life she'd chosen. And slowly, carefully, they built something real. Not perfect. Real relationships never were. There were arguments about boundaries and time management and how to blend a billionaire's life with a single dad's routine. There were moments of doubt and fear and the inevitable complications that came with loving someone. But there were also Sunday mornings at the park and family dinners at Casa Hernandez and movie nights where Emma fell asleep between them. There were quiet conversations on the porch and stolen kisses in the kitchen and the 1,000 small moments that transformed a house into a home. 6 months after their first date, Adrian proposed in that same park where they'd first kissed. Nothing fancy, just him and Victoria and Emma, who'd been in on the plan and could barely contain her excitement. Victoria said yes before he'd finished asking. They married a year later in a small ceremony that scandalized Victoria's board and delighted everyone who'd watched them fall in love. Emma was the flower girl, wearing a dress she'd picked herself and holding Mr. Hopscotch for moral support. Marcus won the office pool. Sarah cried through the entire ceremony. Patricia gave a toast about workplace romances she technically wasn't supposed to encourage, but was glad worked out anyway. And Maria from Casa Hernandez catered, because some traditions were too important to abandon. Years later, when people asked them how they made it work, the billionaire CEO and the single dad, the woman who ran a global empire, and the man who left work at 5 to make sure his daughter got help with homework, they'd share a look and smile. Because the answer was simple, even if living it wasn't. They chose each other, every day, in big ways and small ways. In boardroom decisions that prioritized family time and parenting choices that accommodated business travel. In compromises and sacrifices and the constant negotiation that came with blending two very different lives. But mostly, they chose to believe that love was worth the risk. That opening your heart, even after it had been broken, could lead to something more beautiful than you'd imagined. That sometimes the best things in life came from being brave enough to try, and that fairy tales weren't about perfection. They were about two imperfect people choosing each other again and again, until choosing became second nature and love became the foundation everything else was built on. Emma grew up watching this, learned from their example that love was work and choice and showing up every day, that money and success meant nothing without people who mattered, that being vulnerable was the bravest thing you could do. She carried those lessons forward into her own life, her own relationships, her own future, but that was years away. For now, she was content to be the daughter of two people who'd been brave enough to take a chance, who'd turned a cafeteria conversation into a lifetime, who'd proven that sometimes everyone else could see what you were too scared to admit. That love was worth fighting for, that second chances were real, and that the best answer to "are they wrong?" was always, "No, they're not wrong, because I feel the same way." The rest was just details. Beautiful, complicated, perfectly imperfect details, but details nonetheless, because in the end, all that mattered was this. Adrian Blake and Victoria Hale found each other in the most ordinary place, an office cafeteria over lukewarm coffee and shared laughter. And from that ordinary beginning, they built something extraordinary, a love that was real, honest, worth every risk. A family that was chosen, not just biological. A life that proved happiness wasn't about having everything. It was about having the right things. And they had them. Together. Always.